ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen and ladies, cats and dogs, children of all ages, and everything in between. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know who it is. It is the kid, Unc Just, the pizza freak, always resonating at that pizza frequency. I love talking about pizza. I love making pizza, but mostly I love sharing pizza with people that I give a ship about. Yes, literally breaking bread with mother stinkers that I care about. And I have a sneaking suspicion that you too, my friends, also resonate at said pizza frequency, or why else would you be here? And where is here? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here we are. Open House, Part 2. Healthy Pizza Open House with my main man, the Nolo. Noel Brohner, ladies and gentlemen, of Slow Rise Pizza. We're bringing it back, the HPI, the Healthy Pizza Initiative. So we had a little open house a couple weeks ago. We talked to a lot of friends. We talked to some friends of ours from Hayden Flour Mills. We talked to some friends of ours from King Arthur Baking. We talked to some friends of ours from Ladybug Pizza. And we're just talking about expanding the idea of pizza into this healthy pizza, reinvesting in ourselves, but still continuing to eat pizza, which I like, because I think everything is balanced, right? It's like when we're talking about the pizza equation, this is the pizza equation of your life, ladies and gentlemen. The pizza equation of your life. Because we talked about it. It's like, how do you like to make? What kind of pizza do you like? What kind of pizza do you want it thick? You want it thin? What kind of toppings you want? You want pepperoni? You want sardines? You want, jelly beans? Whatever. Pizza means so many different things to so many different people, but we're thinking, Noel, the big brain trust that the slow rise and the pizza frequency are. Noel's like, we've done a lot. Beginner, intermediate, advanced. We did a lot of those classes. And then we did our phase 2, which Noel coined the pizza collabs, I believe, the Slow Rise Pizza Zoom collabs. And we did a bunch of those with a lot of fantastic chefs from all around the world. And we learned a bunch. We learned a bunch. It's not just about the recipe, it's about the method and the technique, right? Trying to figure out what kind of pizza you like to eat, and more importantly, what kind of pizza do you like to share, and then how do you go about sharing that with the most people, right? The variables in the pizza equation. And a lot of things that we talked about, ladies and gents, was about that found day dough, right? About the dozy dough, right? Because if you don't have a solid foundation, whether it be people or pizza, how can you build upon it, right? So we spent a lot of time talking about the dough, not as much time talking about the toppings, although a lot of the chefs shared a lot of their recipes with us and methods and techniques. And now, so Noel came to me, he said, Just, I'm kind of getting a little older, feeling a little funky. I need to switch it up. I need to flip the switch. And he did. I don't know if you guys look at some of the old 2020 videos and you look at Noel now, you might have to say, what happened? Where did Noel go? Where did half of Noel go? Noel go. Say that 10 times. Where did Noel go? No, where did Noel? You know what I'm talking about. So Noel has been on a journey to get healthier, and he's done it. He's done it, and he's tracking himself, and he's weighing himself, and he's swimming, and he's walking, and he's all this stuff. And he's comes to me. He said, "You know what? I want to start sharing this phase. I want to start this new phase, phase 3, ladies and gentlemen, phase 3. And I call it the Healthy Pizza Initiative. We're feeding not only your body, but we're feeding your mind and your soul. And we're going to go. We're going to be doing 3 new classes with some great friends of ours, and we're excited to have you here today. And we're going to be talking about what we're doing today. We're going to be talking with our friends at King Arthur, and then we've got Nancee Jaffe, I believe, who is our nutritionist that we're going to be working with. That we're really exciting. And then we got Cam and Jimmy. We're going to be talking about sourdoughs and microbes and everything. So we're really excited. If anybody was with our sourdough, Science of Sourdough, you will remember our friends from down south. So without any further to do, I know you guys are like, no, Justin, don't do it. I'm going to bring him on the man, the myth, the legend. And I've got good news that we figured out the audio settings, so I believe you now can hear the Blue Bell of Pizzaness. Noel, if you are there, my brother in pies, come on down.
I'm here, Justin. I'm
There you
here.
are. Whoa, 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 whoa. Looks like the little baking elf has bestowed. What's going on behind you back there? Did you get a visit from the magical baking elf?
I mean, there's a lot going on behind me. I'm baking. What do you think I'm doing when I'm not? Oh yeah,
I,
I kind of stepped aside, and you can see this
yeah,
is
there
all
you
the
go.
stuff that was on my desk.
Hmm.
So I've got, since you asked, I've got some flour here,
Okay,
3 different flours that we'll be using from King Arthur, which we'll get into later.
great.
I've got some Hayden Mills chickpea flour,
Okay.
which I used to make this now petrified pizza from last night. It came out really
Whoa,
nice.
whoa, whoa,
So
whoa.
I'm working on that. That's still a work in progress, but I've got a great recipe, and now I'm working on toppings and combinations and all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've been seeing some things you've been posting on the old gram. Looks
yeah,
like you. What are
these are
those?
these
What are
are a
those?
variety of different sweet potatoes and yams.
No, I don't know what those are.
No, I know. So what's interesting is that we'll be talking about this with Nancee soon, our registered dietitian, is that
Hmm.
we got this idea of hiding vegetables and healthy stuff inside of the pizza, not on
Hmm.
top, but inside of the dough. And so for kids, for instance, who don't want to eat their veggies,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or their fruits, looking at you, Justin.
Hey, whoa, whoa! I love tomatoes, tomato sauce.
There you go. There you go. Or just for for flavor, for
Hmm.
texture, for all that fun stuff. So I'm experimenting. So I got 2 different kinds of sweet potatoes and yams, and I've been experimenting with them. But one of the things that happens sometimes when you add potatoes to dough is that you get
Moisture.
sweetness, you get moisture, you get browning. So I'm just trying to control that because the dough that we're working with for the beginner class is already above 300% hydration. So
Interesting. Whoa,
crazy, right?
you said 300% hydration?
I did say 300%.
Well, how are we getting 300% hydration? Can you just talk real quick what that means for the dough?
Absolutely not.
You're not going to say with three, then I'm going to say it. That means for every 100 grams of flour, you have 300 grams of water, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and
No,
gentlemen, boys and girls, that's
and
what it
cats and
means.
dogs and everything in between. This is cat and dog pizza that evidently we're making. So 300%, that's blowing my mind. That's
Well,
a lot.
Justin, let's let it be blown in silence because that's not. I turned you into like a hydration buff, fiend,
You know,
Joneser.
I've
You're
sat through a lot of
jonesing for
these
the high
classes.
hydration dough. I know you are.
I like big bubbles that are uneven,
Yeah.
because, like you said, that's where the
So
flavor is.
here's what I'll say about hydration.
Yeah.
Hydration is obviously the amount of not so obviously the amount of water that goes into the dough, and
Hmm.
so a lot of people are stuck on certain numbers, including me.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that I'm always experimenting with is I'm looking for happy accidents, right? So
Okay.
when I was developing the dough for the beginner class, um, I wanted I kind of took like some traditional recipes and played around with them, and I was like, yeah, but none of this is pizza. It doesn't eat like pizza. It eats like a crepe, or it eats like French toast, or none of it ate like pizza. So I went kind of crazy with the hydration, and I did a really long bake in a couple of different pans. These are some nice blue steel pans, and these are 8x10
Lloyd,
Lloyd,
De-
Detroit style.
Detroit, if you will.
Justin, stop finishing my sentence like we're an old
Look,
couple.
we're on the clock.
I'm trying. I haven't had my second cup of coffee yet, so give me a millisecond before you finish my sentence. All right,
Come on,
darling.
come on, come
Come
on,
on, come on.
honey, come on.
So anyway, we will get into some of that when we talk to Nancee. So I've got developing recipes and techniques for 3 new classes right now. So I'm basically done with the beginner class, and I'm working on toppings right now, and I'm doing little photo shoots because I think a lot of people are not necessarily into the idea of healthy pizza, but when they see something that when they see something that looks delicious, or they taste something that actually appeals to them, you can change hearts and minds, right?
I smell what you're stepping in, buddy, and it smells delicious. So, before we get into kind of what the game plan is and what the classes we're going to be doing, I know you spoke a little bit about, your recipe tinkering for the first class, but like, tell me why this journey, why is phase three happening? Why are we going? This is this is a pivot into the, what I've coined it, the kind of healthy pizza initiative. Why do
Good.
you feel that it's necessary to do this for yourself, first of all, and then maybe for everybody else?
Okay, that's a good question. And I don't know if I don't really have like the elevator pitch for the classes yet, and maybe I never will, but I spend a lot of time thinking about stuff and trying to plan my future, if that's ever even possible as somebody who is self-employed. Your future
Mhm.
sometimes just gets handed to you in bits and pieces.
Sometimes you just got to give it up.
Sometimes you just got to give it up. So
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the ride for sure. But there was a period in my life starting during COVID where my doctor's like, "Yo, dude, you're enjoying the ride a little too much. You're 55, 54 now. You gotta focus." And I'm like, "I am focusing." He's like, "You got to get healthy." I'm like, "I am healthy." He's like, "You got to eat right." I go to the farmer's market 3 times a week. I eat a mostly vegetarian Mediterranean diet, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, "Well, I'm looking at your blood test and I don't like what I see." I'm like, "Well, what does that even mean?" So, I thought I was on a journey to be healthy by eating what I thought was healthy. But it turns out that as you get older, in my case, uh, powers beyond your control kind of step in, or in my case, stomp on my fun, my pizza eating fun,
Hmm.
and say, "Hey, look, you're 54 now. You're 55. I know people who are in their 30s who have the same issue." So my issue was pre-diabetes.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, you said it. And so I was like, me, diabetic? Like my grandfather was diabetic. My grandmother was diabetic, right? And my doctor was like, "Yeah." He's like, "How much pizza do you eat?" And I'm like, "Not that much." He's like, "Come on, you make pizza for a living." I'm like, "I know, but like, I try not to eat too much pizza because I know it's not good for me." And so I spent the better part of a year kind of struggling with getting healthy. And then after a year, I went back to my doctor, looked at the blood test, and I had made little or no improvements. And I was like, "How is that even possible?" So he's like, "Look, you have control over this. You're not diabetic yet, but once you cross over, it's really hard to turn back the
Undo.
hands of time." So, he's like, "Look, these are some things you can do, and I suggest you do them immediately. Because if you don't, you're gonna become diabetic, and then, you know, all those things that diabetics have to do, you'll have to
Come
do."
with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have a fear of needles, and unnatural fear of them. And I've had it my whole life, and I don't want to prick my finger every day. And I don't want to do, I didn't want to be on a restrictive diet. So I started to do some research, and I found out that um, my issue was less about what I was eating and more about how I was thinking about what I was eating, right?
Okay.
Because
How you
it wasn't
approach it?
well, so what I didn't understand what diabetes was, and it turns out it's a metabolic issue, right? And because your blood sugar is out of whack, it affects everything you do, and even the healthy things that you eat, your body can kind of turn them against you. And I was like,
Hmm.
this doesn't make sense, but let me do some more research. So I did kind of a deep dive, and I started like changing my habits one by one. And my doctor had me doing blood tests every 3 months instead of once a year, and we started to see some progress. And I was kind of surprised because the tweaks that I was making were super incremental. They weren't really that major, right? And so One of the things I started to do was I stopped eating 100% white flour in my daily life. Meaning, if I was going to make pizza, I would throw in some whole wheat. I would throw in some rye, right? And in some cases, when I say throw in, I would use 20, 25, 50%, up to 100%,
Hmm.
right? 100% or all these percentages I'm talking about for people who aren't in the pizza game, that means the percentage of flour, instead of using 100% white flour, I'd use 50% white. And then the other 50% would be whole wheat or rye or all kinds of beautiful strains of wheat. And so that started to help. I also I also found out that a lot of the food that I was eating, the way my body was treating those foods was to turn them into sugar, basically.
Right.
And we'll speak to Nancee about that because I'm probably misspeaking. But so I had to really look at the way I was preparing foods, right? And so I started to look into steaming foods and eating them raw as opposed to, for instance, sautéing or roasting with lots of beautiful olive oil, and that certainly helped. Exercise, that was another thing. During when COVID hit, all of us had more restricted lives for a short
Yeah.
period, and I certainly changed my life, not for the better, and so I had to kind of rejig that and start walking every morning, and I started swimming, and I
Hmm.
started doing all kinds of stuff, and that helped, right? And so things like that started to kind of turn my life around. And my doctor was like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Keep doing it. So I started to really think about like, how am I gonna go and consult when in my real life I don't really eat white wheat,
Hmm.
right? And in my real life I don't eat pepperoni, right? And in my real life I don't eat a lot of the things that I'm teaching people to use to make great pizza. And I was like, I was really struggling with it, and I'm still struggling with it.
We call that imposter syndrome a little bit, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So, cut to 3 years later, and I've pretty much turned my health situation around. I'm no longer pre-diabetic. I dropped 50 pounds, which for me is a lot.
Wow.
For anybody, it's a lot, really. But
Yeah.
it's not so much the weight. Is like once you the funny thing about it is that I know a lot of people, including me, have struggled with weight loss.
Hmm.
Once I changed my habits, which is the hardest thing to do, the hardest thing to do. Once I changed my behavior and I turned these healthy lifestyle choices into like rituals that I enjoyed, that I look forward to, that actually got me out of bed in the morning, and you know, uh, in the best way. Like when you wake up and you're like, oh, and then other mornings you wake up and you're like, yes, let's do this. It
Yeah.
was more of that every morning, and I was starting my morning with a run or with a long walk, on the beach. And I also, for me, I started to use technology, and that was also really important. It's not necessarily important for everybody, but I got a Fitbit.
Okay.
This is not even an expensive one. This is like the cheapest one they have. It's like $69. I like it because it's low profile. It's not like some big giant screen that's
Hmm.
constantly flashing with text messages or whatever. Um, but it lets me know like where I'm at. And it's hooked up to my phone. And I started using actually some software that I think you were using even before me, called My Fitness Pal.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that's about I think they call it food journaling, right?
Right.
And so I had in my life before done a life experiment when I was probably 35, where I journaled all the food that I ate into a spreadsheet.
Hmm.
And this was like pre-internet, or really at the beginning of the internet, so they didn't, and there was definitely no apps for any of that stuff back then. So I was having to, I mean, I would go on the internet or look in books and find the nutritional information, calories, protein, carbs, whatever, and try to like figure out, where I was at. And it was a good period of my life, and journaling is important, whether you're writing down your pizza recipes or you're writing down what you eat. And I've got a scale on my baking desk that never leaves, and so I started actually weighing my food.
Okay.
And that seems like a lot to do, but actually, if you already have a scale on your in your kitchen and it's plugged in, it's actually really easy to do. Instead of just like putting a bunch of food on a plate, you put your plate on your scale, and it's really easy to do.
Right.
So anyway, it became like I gamified the whole thing.
Right.
The process. So what I like to do is get out in the morning and go for a run, go for a swim, walk the farmer's market, whatever I do, come back, have breakfast, and I've already burned off 2,000 calories before I even eat anything, right?
Right.
And by the end of the day, I've burned off 3,000 calories or more, and that allows me to eat whatever I want. And some people think I'm crazy, and other people say, dude, how did you lose 50 pounds? You look amazing, right?
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people are struggling with health, right? And I know that because I meet them. They're my family, they're my friends, and different people struggle with different aspects, right? So for me, I've always been a little overweight, right? I've always been super active. I've always been into tennis and baseball and soccer, and I always liked running and swimming, and I did all the sports when I was growing up. But as you become older, your body changes, and the way that it reacts to the food that you eat and the exercise you do changes, and like you got to be on top of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I
Or it'll be on
decided,
top of you.
or it'll be on top of you. So I decided just to try something, and it's really an experiment. When you and I started this whole Zoom pizza class thing, you, Justin, were you were helping me out with classes here and there. And actually, I had invited you to come to Vegas and be a host at the King Arthur booth, right?
Correct.
And that was going to be really fun. And my friend, hopefully Lance Roberts, who's my pizza consigliere, was going to be there. And I had a team of people from New York and all over California and everywhere in between, pizza makers coming in, men, women, boys, and girls of all shapes and sizes. And we were going to rock the King Arthur booth. And then that whole thing got canceled. And then this whole Zoom pizza, as you were saying before, class thing was like a crapshoot, but I was like, let's try it and see what happens. And it worked really well. And then the Zoom pizza collab thing, I was just me like being bored with doing like 9 months plus of 4 beginner classes a week, an intermediate on Saturdays, and an advanced on Sundays. And by bored, I was never bored during the class, but I gotta say, on a Sunday morning after doing 5 classes, waking up at 8, right? Or earlier, because you got to get your dough out, right? Yep. And you're panning all the dough and you're measing out all your ingredients, and then you're jumping on at 9:30 saying, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, "No, Justin, I'm not ready at all." I'm not dressed. There's who's doing my hair and makeup. The lighting isn't working this morning.
Yep.
My Wi-Fi is no good. People are signing up last minute or they can't find their recipes. But as soon as we're like, go, I was like in the zone every darn time. Right?
Right. Yes.
And what's amazing? We have, probably 32 classes plus up online now for people to stream. And you've edited all of them, so you've watched them probably more than I have.
I've watched a lot of them, yeah.
And I watched them too. And what I love about them is they stand the test of time. Yeah. Right. And it's not because of the technology, because people put a lot more. They have a higher budget than we do for stuff I don't even know about. What is it called? Post-production?
Yeah, we don't have much. Or pre-production or actually production.
Yeah, so we do everything live on Zoom, and we're at the mercy of Zoom updates and Wi-Fi connections and our moms Zoom bombing us,
yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
So all good. So Now we're moving on to the third phase, as you said, which is I still don't like any of the names we've come up with. I like your HPI Healthy Pizza Initiative as well as any of them. Healthy Pizza sounds like
Balance
something.
Bite Pie,
I
Balance
know,
Bite,
Justin.
BBP. I don't know.
BBP.
I
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know.
I don't know. But for right now, the idea is that I know everybody is on a different journey.
Mhm.
I just was up in Orcas Island 2 weeks ago, right? We
With
did us
Josh,
with
Josh
Josh.
Hernandez,
Yeah, and I was with a bunch of
Ladybug
triathletes.
Pizza. Come on,
Ladybug
shout out.
Pizza. I was with a bunch of coaches, and it was really inspiring. My wife was doing an event, and she was doing what they call a swim run, and so I'm surrounded by these like I mean world record holders, right, of
Yeah.
all shapes and sizes, from 7 years old down to maybe up to maybe 65 or 70. I
Wow.
think actually there was a woman who was in her mid to late 70s. Anyway, um, everybody has different issues, right? Some guys are trying to put on muscle, and some people are trying to lose weight, and some people are trying to maintain. Other people have, kind of specific issues. So, in general, what I'm trying to do with this new generation is collaborate, not necessarily with pizza makers or chefs or bread bakers, but with people who are in various health, nutrition, exercise related fields,
Okay.
and try to cater the beginning, intermediate, and advanced classes to different health goals that people may have.
Great. Great.
So let's see. The beginner class, which I'll discuss more with Nancee in a few minutes, is going to be all of the beginner classes. Level 3 will be utilizing non-wheat flours, and we're
Okay.
starting with chickpea. I've got a few other ideas that I'm going to be workshopping. The level 2 classes, I'm going to try to use about 50% white wheat and about 50% whole wheat and other non-white wheat products, right? So I've got some beautiful King Arthur white whole wheat. I've got some incredible Durham flour, which I'll be using for the intermediate class. And actually, I've been working on this recipe for 2 years. I had other ideas for it because it's such a fantastic recipe. But what I'm doing now is I'm kind of putting some last minute changes on the recipe, and I'm doing basically 50% non-wheat, non-white wheat, and then
Nice.
the advanced class is going to be 100% whole grains, which I'm
Okay.
super excited about.
Wow.
It's super challenging. At this point, I'm really happy with 60% whole wheat, but sometimes it gets a little dense and it gets a little bitter. And also, people are weird with whole wheat, right? They're like, they want the health benefits, but they also love and are addicted to white wheat because it's so delicious and it's so light, right? And that's what people want. But the actually, once you get on the program, like I eat a lot of 100% rye and 100% whole wheat, and it tastes good. It makes you feel good, and your doctor's like, "No, whatever you're doing, keep it up." I'm
Keep
like, "All
doing it.
right, I'm
Keep doing
eating
it.
bread and pizza 7 days a week, so if you insist, doc, I will
I'll
continue."
I'll continue to do it. I'll continue to do it. Well, cool. Well, I'm excited. I'll be there. I think unfortunately I'll be missing the first class, the beginner class with you and
Terrible,
Nancee.
terrible.
But hey, look,
I
not my
know.
choice, unfortunately. But I'll be there. The smiling face. But why don't should we go ahead and bring Nancee on so we can get so just real quick. Tell me how you met Nancee. Tell me what she's doing here and what she's bringing, just real quick before we blue bell her.
Well, Nancee is a friend of my wife, and I met her through my wife, and I really liked her. She's smart. She is fun. She challenges all of my preconceptions and
Hmm.
the things that I know, but she doesn't do it in an off-putting way. She does it in an empowering way. And so, like all the people I'm going to be collaborating with, I'm like, "Hey, would you want to do a pizza collab with me?" And they're like, "What does that even mean?"
Right.
So we kind of like I'm working with like probably a dozen people already, and we're in various stages of conversation.
Hmm.
But Nancee has drank the pizza Kool-Aid, and she's on board for 3 classes.
Great.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Well, good, good.
Let's get to know her.
Let's reprogram the way we think and deflate a lot of anything that's scary. 'Tis the season, right? Almost October. Scary about healthy pizza. So, Nancee, I'm going to blue bell you. If you're there, blue bell, come on down. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing? Welcome,
I'm doing
welcome.
good. How are you guys?
Good, good, good. Do you hear Noel going on and on and on about his healthy pizza journey? Jeez Louise. I mean, I feel like people are falling asleep. Maybe you can invigorate a little life in this conversation. Jeez, I think
I
real
don't,
pizza therapy for Noel, I guess. He just needs somebody to listen to him. So,
I think it's exciting to hear how, I love hearing when people get jazzed about food and jazzed about their health. I think it's inspiring personally.
yeah, good, good,
Yeah,
good, good. Well, I'm going to bounce off. I'm going to let you guys chit chat for a little bit, and I'll see you in a little under a half an hour, okay?
great. Hi,
Nancee
Noel.
Jaffe, hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
What brings you to our little Zoom today?
I'm excited to do this pizza collab with you and actually bring some, hopefully, I have almost 13 years of dietitian experience that hopefully I can bring some nutrition advice as we, look at ways to bring fun foods and keep them in the diet foods we love, but do them in ways that we can feel really proud of and know we're getting some good health benefits from them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So let's see here. It's hard to know where to start. So, am I right? We met through Annabella.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's such an amazing person, one of my good friends. So, yes, very, very lucky to have her in my life.
And she's on quite a journey too, right?
Yeah, she is. She's doing some good work on herself, 100%.
Good work. So, um, yeah. So, I mean, I feel like everybody. This is a really tumultuous time,
Yeah.
right? And people always say that, right? I mean, I've only been alive for 57 years, but apparently the 60s when I was born was pretty crazy. I remember the 70s for sure. That was crazy. The
Yeah.
80s is historically crazy. And every year, every decade is pretty nuts. But,
Yeah.
I'm feeling it a lot right now. And honestly, because I'm feeling so good, that allows me not to feel so terrible about like the state of the world,
Mhm. And I
right?
think also, it's a human need that when we are feeling emotional, we want to take care of ourselves. And one of the most basic ways to take care of ourselves is to eat. And so I think it's important that we find ways to self-care and use food, but do it in a way that is part of the self-care process where we're not just shoving candy bars in our face, but we're going, okay, I love a food like pizza. How can I make that part of my self-care routine? Because like you said, we're all maybe struggling a little bit. The world is kind of crazy right now, and we deserve to take care of ourselves. Just how can we do it in a way that doesn't throw everything off?
So, may I ask about your journey a little bit before we get into pizza?
You bet, you bet. So
Where?
um, go ahead.
No, no. Where did it start?
Yeah, so I actually started my career in the art world. So I was working in galleries and museums, and I had actually lived in Ecuador for a period of time. I was very lucky that I got to travel a lot in my 20s. And little did I know that I had gotten a parasite, a pretty big one. And it took about a year and a half, but it came out, which was really fun. And I started getting really, really sick after that point. Dizzy, fainting, blacking out. I lost 15 pounds in 3 months. Just, lots of things started to go wrong with my health. And it took a few years, but I finally got diagnosed with celiac disease. And this was before the whole gluten-free trend. So no one even knew what gluten-free or celiac disease was 17 years ago when I was diagnosed. Yeah. And I realized pretty quickly that, I had lots of questions about how strict I had to be and what the diet needs to look like that a lot of people weren't able to answer. So within 6 months of my diagnosis, I realized I needed to be that person. So I went back to school, got a master's degree in nutrition, and I was very lucky that UCLA was opening up a celiac program when I graduated from school, and they asked me to run it. And so
Are you
that
kidding?
was
I didn't even know that.
that was my first, and it still is. So I was hired right out of school to help run the celiac program at UCLA, and they kept me on, and now I run the largest GI nutrition program in the country. So I'm very lucky that all of this, it went from a health journey to a career. And it's still a health journey, and it's still a career.
That's beautiful. I love that. See, that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get my journey and my career in alignment,
Yeah.
because for me personally, when I wake up every morning out of alignment,
Yeah.
I don't even know if I ever get in alignment, right?
Yes, and it's really, like you're saying, having all of these different parts of our life, with which food is one component of that. Having our passion, right? So doing something for my career that I feel passionate about, something you're passionate about, getting good food, getting good exercise, having good people in our life, like your wife. All of this is what creates that good life that helps us to, sustain and move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was not to change the subject, but I was working with a client last night in Texas, right? And they're trying to put frozen pizza into 250 gas stations, right?
Wow.
Now, gas station culture is a big thing in Texas, right? And so the guy that I'm working with, he's on a health journey as well. And so it was really interesting because he watched my beginner level 1 class, and he and his partner made awesome pizza in their house, and they were freaking out, right? And then I was chatting with him, at the end of the evening, and he's like, Noel, but how do I make this stuff healthy for people? Because I don't want to Texas is pretty bad when it comes to think about gas station food, right? And so we're going to put frozen pizza into 250 convenience store gas stations. And he's like, well, what if I want to use local stuff? And what if I want to use whole grains? And I'm like, well, I can help with both of those. And I sent him a link to a guy I know that mills his own grains 35 minutes from Austin. So
beautiful.
Right. And so it's amazing for me, because when my clients say to me, hey, what are my options for health and well-being, for lack of better terms, I'm like, okay, here's what I suggest. And it's amazing. And so it's a logical extension for me, right? I already know how to make pizza taste good, and I already know how to help people improve their pizza and bread programs. But how do I then bring in what we're talking about and make it a full package without it being too much of a struggle? Or because that's what I feel. I feel like I'm pushing people, or I'm forcing people to do what they say they want to do.
Right. And it's that reminder, a saying I use with my patients all the time is any amount counts. So instead of thinking we need to have it perfect, which, by the way, there is no such thing as perfect, right? Or there's an ideal of what it's supposed to look like. Instead, we go, well, can we start making minor shifts that eventually add up? So if we're adding more whole grains in, that's a minor shift that starts to add up to real results later on, right? So any of those little changes we can make in, the healthy direction, that's enough. That's a lot. And oftentimes people don't give themselves credit unless it's all or nothing in a lot of people's mindset. And I think that all or nothing culture can be very dangerous, because then we can start to beat ourselves up and shame ourselves, or we give up.
I wrote the book. Actually, I have the book. I have the book.
Yeah. We have in our food culture, we've got these ideas of good and bad and right and wrong, right? And people want to put pizza in a category, so they want to put it in the bad category. They want to, and I think that there's a danger in that, because we forget that food serves more than just our health, and so we have to be mindful of how do we take care of all those aspects of ourselves. Right. And how do we, instead of looking at food as a good, bad, right, and wrong thing, we look at it from nourishment, we look at it from health, we look at it from social, and we look at it from pleasure. Yeah.
Well, so I feel like I'm super excited that I chose you as my first collab partner
Thank you.
in this journey, because everything that comes out of your mouth, I wish I had said, or I'm like, yeah. And it took me 4 years or 57, depending on how you count, to come to these simple conclusions that you
Yeah.
just like kind of go like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I'm like, hold on, let's go back to B. What did you just say? So hopefully we can kind of like, I know that we're working, behind the scenes on a beginner and intermediate and an advanced class. So
Yeah.
what I'd kind of like to do with you is maybe talk about each class, but not
Sure.
from a pizza ingredient or a dough or a topping perspective, but let's talk about the journey and some of the topics that we're going to hit on in each class for people who are going to watch this on YouTube or for people who are listening now, so they can understand what they can expect. And I'll do my best to put a lot of this information into the registration pages, and I'm going to do a bunch of Instagram posts and stories to kind of like give people clues into what we're thinking. But I appreciate the long form, if you want to call it that. We're going to spend a half hour talking. So maybe we can spend 5 minutes on each class, just kind of going back and forth on what you'd like to accomplish and see what that means.
Yeah, I think, the running theme that we have through all of the classes is really about, bringing that mindfulness around health, pleasure, and social, right? So that's going to be a theme throughout all of the classes. And I think in our beginner class, we're really focusing, I have a lot of patients who come to me wondering, again, people want diet to be good or bad. So what diet is the best, or what diet is the healthiest? And so when we look at the evidence, instead of calling it right or wrong or good or bad, I just say, well, we've got the most evidence on what we call a plant-forward diet. So we're really going to be honing in on a plant-forward diet. And what's exciting about the pizza that you've made for this one is not only is it plant-forward, but it's just highly nutritious, and I know it's going to be amazingly delicious, right? I think the crust you came up with is going to be just jam-packed with fiber, which means we're feeding our gut microbiome. It's filled with iron. It's got all these great B vitamins, and then it's just going to taste amazing. Which, if it doesn't taste good, why are we even calling it pizza, right? We gotta make sure we're bringing that in. But we're really going to look at, what are some of the different diets that are out there? And instead of scrutinizing them or doing the good, bad, right, or wrong thing, we're going to talk about value, but we're also going to talk about how do we not stress ourselves out with our diet? How do we make diet a lifestyle instead of a diet? I really don't even like that word diet because it feels so boxed in and restrictive. We really need to open it up and make it a lifestyle, because if we're not going to live this every day of our lives for the next however many years we have on this planet, why are we doing it in the first place? What is the goal? Are we trying to lose weight for an event? I hope not. I hope that we're trying to make this something that we can actually do every day of our life. So I think we're really spending the beginner class kind of honing in on that, looking at processing, one of my favorite topics, which is olive oil. We're going to be kind of doing a little bit of that. So yeah, anything I missed? I think that's kind of the basics for the first class.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You used the word evidence.
Yes.
And I wrote it down in all caps. All right. It's so important to me because I feel like evidence seems to be what's missing in a lot of people's ideas of what it is that they're looking to accomplish, right? Whether it's losing weight, adding muscle, maintaining, if they're pre-diabetic or celiac. Obviously, if you work at UCLA and you have a nutrition, diet, science-based background, I'm not going to say it's easy for you, but that's like the realm in which you exist.
I was going to say,
what about the rest of us?
Yeah, exactly. So, because I practice in a more Western setting, if I don't have evidence to back up what I'm doing, the doctors are going to come back to me and say, why did you say this to my patient, right? I need to be able to back up the suggestions that I'm making, which isn't always easy. And nutrition doesn't have a lot of funding for research research. But what's great is there is enough that we can come up with good ideas and good plans for our patients. For the average person, looking at, a scientific study can be very, very difficult. And I think we're going to do that actually in our advanced class. We're going to talk about, how do you kind of look at, or is that our intermediate class? I'm forgetting now. I think it's our advanced
finish your
class.
sentence. What was the idea
That we're going to be looking at, like, how do you look at a scientific study? How, what are the different types? Kind of what are the A, B, and C and D of, looking at these studies? Make it a little bit easy for people, because you shouldn't have to have a degree in statistics to be able to look at some of these papers, right? But we also want to be really careful because, the news will sensationalize one paper. Even good news outlets, they'll get their hands on, a paper, they'll read one paragraph of it, and then they'll extrapolate all this from it that isn't true. And it can actually do a lot of harm if we're not careful. So we just want to know how to look at the evidence and be able to make decisions for ourselves.
I love it. To answer your question, I'm not sure exactly what class that's going to be covered in, but no. Here's the good news. Today I have Camron and James coming on. And they're going to actually start this conversation now.
Great.
And we're going to actually look into how to read a scientific paper. Not even just how to read them, how to find them, how to think about them, right?
Beautiful.
Because for me, that's this evidence-based kind of meal planning or pizza making is really important. And I feel like the two worlds need to come together.
Yep. Yeah, but this is always going to be hard because, all of us need to eat and all of us have a relationship with the food we put in our body, which means to some degree, we all have to have some level of engagement. And now we live in a culture where anyone can post anything.
Right.
And so there's going to be comments, there's going to be people saying all sorts of things. And this is where I'm so glad you're having experts on who are going to be able to talk through how do we make good decisions for ourselves, right? And not let other people dictate and decide for us.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, one of the things that is important to me is I don't want people with secondhand knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Spreading misinformation to me, my clients, my student, my family, my friends, none of it. Because that's already what's going on. That's what we're all stuck in.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you for just, having this conversation with us. I also want to bring up one more thing that you talked about, and maybe you can just spend, a minute talking about it now, which is this idea of processing and processed foods. Give us a 60-second version of what you think we're going to cover.
Yeah, I think, what's so fascinating is finally there is evidence on this kind of ultra processing, right? So when we look at levels of processing, there's actual several levels. And, again, we put things into the good, bad, right, and wrong category. And we say, okay, so any level of processing is bad. We live in a society where we are going to need convenience on occasion. So how do we choose for ourselves what level of processing is going to work for our bodies, right? But we are finding that what's in this ultra processed category where we look at something and we can't even tell what its starting ingredients were, that does seem to have some negative health effects, right? And so how do we look at those levels of processing and make good decisions for ourselves when we are at the grocery store and we are looking at frozen pizza, for example? How do we make those decisions about, which one we're going to pick for our family for dinner?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. So, for me in my journey, my doctor told me, cut down on the processed foods. And I was like, all right. And to me, I was like, that means frozen pizza, candy bars. And then I'm like, it's got to be deeper than that. And so I started to do my own deep dive on processing. And I realized, man, there's so many different levels. And I didn't know about any of the stuff that we're going to talk about. And you've introduced me to like a bunch of really interesting evidence and science-based resources, which I'm super excited about. Not knowing any of that, I was like, wow, I'm even processing stuff in my own kitchen and I'm not even thinking about it. And it's creating a pre-diabetic, kind of, I don't want to judge it, but it's causing my metabolism to wreak havoc on my health.
Actually, and this is where, we can get too in the weeds and we can go, a little astray if we're not careful. I think, this is where if we're too focused on health and we're getting rid of the social and pleasure aspects. Remember, we always want to be balancing what
Yeah.
we're talking with food. Some amount of processing is part of our daily life, and we have to have some level of compassion with ourselves around that and acceptance around it, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, if there's minor shifts that we can make, that instead of going for the completely pulverized version of something, we go for the slightly ground version of something, all of a sudden it retains a little bit more of its grit. It's going to act differently on the gut microbiome, and it's going to give us a slightly different nutritional profile. Well, great. As long as it's not changing our pleasure and our social, that's going to give us a little more health. Wonderful. If we can do that, that's great.
Beautiful. All right, so let's talk about the intermediate class a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm excited about all these classes. The intermediate class, one of the things that I'm super excited about is the idea of building a meze plate, right? To go with or as part of the meal, right?
Yeah.
And I'll just give you a quick anecdote, and then I'll let you talk about your ideas. But in my life, my family and I have dinner every Sunday. And they're always like, when are you going to make pizza? When are you going to make pizza? So, once a month, I'll make pizza, once every 2 months. But like on my day off, it's really the last thing I want to do. I want to relax. I want to have a glass of wine or three.
Yeah.
I want to chill out with my family. I want to sit in the hot tub, whatever. But lately, I've been bringing a lot of pizza to family dinner because I'm using them as guinea pigs for the beginning, intermediate, and advanced classes. So a couple of months ago, I was working on the beginner dough. And I was like, and we had family in town, and we had like 20 people coming to family dinner. I'm like, I'm doing pizza. They're like, great. This is awesome. And my nephew from Colombia was there, and it was really fun, right? But when I showed up to dinner, I had 2 boxes of dough and about 6 boxes of vegetables, right? And I load them in, and they're looking at me like, where's the pizza? I'm like, just wait, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, for instance, like I brought a bunch of like vegetables, right? And they're like, why are you bringing all these vegetables to a pizza party? But I prepped everything and cooked everything and put everything either on the pizza or with the pizza. And I built like 20 meze plates that
Yeah.
included pizza.
Love
Right.
it.
And I had everybody working, and this one person's job was to build and help me plate the salad. I was actually 3 people's job because it was a major salad, and we had two different kinds. And then another part of the meze plate was all the different roasted and steamed vegetables, right, and grilled. And so people were doing 3 sprigs of asparagus and a scoop of kale and some grilled corn, and it was absolutely fantastic. Right. And also, I had a bunch of relatives from New Jersey there who were like, this is not pizza. This is not pizza. But when they were eating it, they were like, I think this is pizza. There's something about this. Justin, you hear any background noise there? I think we have some. I think we have some. Who's making that noise? Who's making that noise? Nancee, do you hear that, or is that just me?
It was someone was unmuted, but they're muted now. You're good.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So anyway, long story short, in my own life, I feel like I have been able to allow people to see maybe pizza through rose-colored glasses. And it's important to me because I don't want to be the guy who shows up with a backpack full of broccoli and kale, and people are like, I'm not inviting that guy to the pizza party anymore.
Absolutely. Right? And the intermediate class, I'm really excited about, especially because this is where we get to really focus in on my love, which is gut health and prebiotics and probiotics, right? This is what I love to do for a living. And so the mesoplate that we're creating, we're going to include, prebiotic foods and probiotic foods. And I get to talk all about that and what that means and what the research shows on, bringing in these food forms versus supplement forms and why we care about the gut microbiome. And especially, I spend every day talking to patients who are really suffering with digestive issues, and they feel like they're having to lose some of their favorite foods. So how do we keep some of these favorite foods in the diet? And we do it in ways that aren't making their gut suffer. and that actually maybe are giving some benefit to the gut. So I'm really excited for this class where we get to focus in on those things.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about olive oil.
Yeah. Oh my
Tell
gosh,
me
what
what
would you
your
like to
relation.
say?
Well, I mean, when I go on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or almost anywhere, I get
Yeah.
these influencers screaming at me,
Yeah.
right, about what's healthy, what's not healthy. They're cherry picking studies. They're using these anecdotes about how this or that happened to them or somebody they know. So, how enlighten me.
Absolutely. So I'm very lucky that I am part owner of an olive oil company. So I absolutely love talking about olive oil. What's great about olive oil is it's been around for millennia, right? As human beings, we've been using olive oil not only for consuming and pleasure, but we even put it on our skin. We've been using it for healing in Europe. You have a cold, you take a shot of olive oil. You're constipated, you take a shot of olive oil. Your grandmother asks you, did you drink your olive oil yet today? Like that's just part of the culture in these Mediterranean regions. And one of the things that really hadn't been looked at as much as it could have is what are all of those beneficial elements that are in olive oil that we could be doing more with in our diet. And that's really what the company that I'm a part of, we're called a high phenolic olive oil, which means that we're looking at what's called phytonutrients, or the active healthy ingredients that are naturally in our olives, that if we harvest them correctly and we manufacture them properly, we can keep in the olive oil, and then we get them as a health benefit. And even places like Yale and Harvard are studying it for Alzheimer's prevention and for, against heart disease. There's so much value to some of these really healthy fats in our diet. So, just like we were talking about before, that so many things get demonized as good, bad, right, or wrong. Fat goes through cycles where it's demonized, carbs goes through cycles where it's demonized. Really we need all of these different things as part of our diets, but how do we know which fats to choose, which carbs to choose? Olive oil is definitely one of those fats that if we have it in good measure in our diet, it really can bring some benefit to us.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. So I have those links. So I'm working on the registration page for the intermediate class. So I'll make sure to include that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to be using healthy fats in our pizza classes. And then we only have a few minutes left, but let's have a quick look at our notes on the advanced class.
Yeah.
I'm excited about using 100% whole grains and regenerative wheat grown by King Arthur, which we're going to get into next. What are you excited about?
I love that we're just going to try and throw as many vegetables into this thing as we can. We're going to be using it in the sauces. We're going to be doing all sorts of fun things with vegetables during this class. I also love that I get to give some of my fun, weird nutrition tips and tricks of ways to get more out of the food that you're consuming. So if you're going to be eating garlic, how do you get more of those phytonutrients that I described out of it? You're not changing the beautiful flavor. You're not, changing the palatability of the food, but you're getting more of what we call the biogenic, or those kind of beneficial elements. So I get to give some fun tips and tricks for even just prepping, which is going to be great.
Are you going to be prepping, or am I going to be prepping?
You're going to be prepping, but I'm going to be helping you know how to prep.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm excited for that. So let's see here. For the beginner class, I think it's in the registration page. So the Hayden Flour Mills, who's going to be our collab partner, this is not acceptable for celiacs. Can you explain what's up with that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, for someone like myself who has celiac disease, the gluten-free diet is the only medical therapy we have at this point in time. And because the nose and the mouth are connected by the same tube, I can't even breathe in flour. It could potentially cause some damage to the small intestine for me. So I'm grateful, I don't want anyone who doesn't have to be gluten-free to be gluten-free. So I'm glad that we're talking about some of the health benefits of these wonderful whole grain flours that are out there. But this is where I'm unfortunately not able to participate in the fun. I'll get to watch all of you all make wonderful pizza with this dough, but I will be watching since not safe for a celiac.
Got it. So we have links to Authentic Foods. They have a couple of really nice chickpea flours, and also I think Bob's Red Mill is available pretty widely, and that's safe for celiacs, right?
Yeah, we still want any flour or grain product for celiac disease. We want it to be labeled gluten-free. As long as it's labeled gluten-free, we consider it a safe option.
Really? That's the
Yeah,
I didn't know.
no, yeah, because what we've seen in evidence, right? We like to talk about evidence that when flour and grain products are made in mills and they don't have a gluten-free label, they're more likely to be cross-contaminated. It's very easy to use the same milling equipment to make, wheat, barley, and rye flour that you would use to make a gluten-free flour. So when a company chooses to actually certify their product or put that FDA gluten-free label on it, it means that they are understanding that extra level of care that someone with celiac disease really requires.
No cross contamination.
That's it.
Yep.
That's what we're looking for, Justin.
Yep. Well, it's 11 o'clock is on us. I just want to, I've been taking notes, listening in the background. I really love the idea of self-care versus self-soothing and how we think about and how we approach our relationship with food. I probably will not be inviting a man with a backpack full of broccoli and kale to my pizza parties, although I am excited for the fortification and hiding the things in there and the availability for us to extract more of the nutrients, out of it. I really love how you said, think about it, the health, the pleasure, and the social. And that's not unlike what I kind of kick at the beginning. I love talking about it. I love making it, but mostly I love sharing it. That is definitely that pizza frequency. And Nancee, we're excited to have you here with the slow rise and also on that frequency and, reprogramming a little bit about how we think about it and how we approach it and how we use that food too, and hopefully how it can be a platform to lift us up, not bring us down and make us feel bad and make us have wrinkles and feel slow and bogged down. So awesome, Nance. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. So, Noel, you want to say thanks?
Thank you, Nancee.
Nance.
Thanks, you guys. It
All
was
right.
great to be here.
If it doesn't show, I'm really excited to work with you. It's really new for me. I really appreciate your point of view and all of your life experience, and also this is a weird one, your compassion.
Mhm.
Right?
Thank
I've never thanked a collab partner for their compassion, but like that's a really important part
Yeah.
in doing what you do, and it's becoming an important part in doing what I do.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I look forward to the class.
All right.
Bye,
We'll see you.
everyone.
Thanks, Nance. It's really great what she was saying. And any amount counts. And that's the way. A baby step is still a step. The facts are out there. Let's follow those. Let's get to it. Let's figure out how we can still have pizza, but it's lifting us up, not bring us down. Who's next? I feel we have a friend coming in from King Arthur Flour, one of your good friends here, huh?
Yeah.
Miss
So
Jones,
it's
Katie
funny how
Jones.
you kind of like what something you said is sticking with me. Any amount counts, right?
Right. Well, she
And
said that. She said that. She said, and that's what we talk about. A baby step is still a step. It's
there
like
you
what
go.
we were talking about. What I do, I got into when I'm walking. Why not pick up the trash, right? One piece is still better than. I mean, but everything is that's the frequency. We're all on that frequency. If you see somebody litter or you see pick a piece of trash, you pick it up.
There you go. So
And one piece is still better than none. So.
one piece is better than none. So the way that I'm thinking about King Arthur right now is that I did an in-person class up at the Bread Lab in Washington State a couple of years ago, and King Arthur was the host, and we got 30 chefs, bakers, home bakers up to the Bread Lab, and I met the guy running it named Dr. Jones, and he is an incredible scientist, right? Evidence-based health and nutrition and also environmental science, right? And he's all about cracking the code and getting people to eat healthy and whole grains, and also just like promoting environmental well-being.
Right.
And so it was there that I really started to learn about this whole idea of
What's the word?
regenerative farming.
Regenerative
Yeah. And
farming, right?
so when I was talking with him, I was struggling myself with how to promote it. And he was like, you know what? Just tell people to throw a handful in. Don't think about it. Not 10, not 20, not 50, not 100. Just throw a handful in every time you make pizza, bread, pancakes, scones, croissants, doesn't matter.
Right.
And I was like, all right. And I started trying it myself, and a handful became 2 handfuls, became 50%.
Right. And we go to the spreadsheets. We've got the data. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
So when I started to think about this healthy pizza initiative and the different classes, of course, I wanted to include King Arthur, and I called Jeff and I'm like, hey, what's up with that flour you guys have been working on? He's like, well, funny you should ask. And they have a lot going on. So I'm like, do you think we can get some people to come on and talk with us? And guess who we have today?
Guess who we have? So we have Katie Jones here with us from King Arthur. So Katie, if you're there, I'm going to bluebell you on. Here it comes. Katie, come on down.
Hello.
Hey, Katie, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
I'm doing all right. Noel, how you living over there?
All good.
Good to go. Well, hopefully we're running a few minutes behind, so I'm going to jump off and let you all chit chat, but I'm really excited, and I'll be throwing some links into the old chat as you guys are gabbing, let's say. So thanks for coming to hang out with us. I'll see you all in a few moments.
Thanks, Justin.
To share my screen. So just let me know when you guys can see that. I want to make sure.
All right, so let's make sure we're going to remake you a co-host, so we should be able to see that shortly. Perfect. So Katie, before we get going, thank you for being so prepared. Where are you today? And tell us what is your relationship to King Arthur Baking? Yeah,
for sure. So my name's Katie Jones. I've been with King Arthur for about 3 years now, working on the innovation team. I work in the brand side of our innovation team. So thinking about what do consumers need, what does the company need, and what products do we want to bring forward to make sure we're committed, helping make great bread, make great baked goods, but also driving our commitment to the planet as well. And today I am coming to you from Burlington, Vermont. So I'm just about an hour and a half away from our offices up in Norwich for King Arthur.
How nice. And I mean, to me, I think of King Arthur. I honestly don't think of innovation. I think of tradition.
Yeah.
So why is there an innovation team, and what is your mission?
Yeah, so innovation is really important to us as we think about continuing to keep bakers excited. So we think about our core baker, the person that loves baking, has been baking bread for years and years, right? They maybe know our bread flour, our AP, our all-purpose flour, things like that. But we also want to continue to bring specialty flours into the mix. So a couple of years ago, for example, we launched our pizza flour. So that's a blend of flour that is perfectly developed to make a great pizza. And so that's the kind of innovation that we are often bringing forward when it comes to kind of that core baker. But we also think about bakers kind of across the spectrum. So people who maybe have celiac or who are new to baking. We want to make sure we have products that are suited for those bakers as well. So we're always looking to introduce new products that really reach those bakers across the spectrum.
Beautiful. How many people are on the innovation team?
So it depends on how you look at it. From a brand perspective, there are 2 of us thinking about developing a pipeline of products. But then when we talk about R&D, our R&D team, there's about 4 people working on that team as well that are actually doing the work on formulating our products, making the recipes, doing that kind of work. So yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. And what are we going to cover today?
So we're going to talk a little bit about regenerative agriculture, as you mentioned, and thinking through, a little history of who King Arthur is and why regenerative is such an important focus for us today. And then we'll get into the 2 regenerative flours that you'll be using in the pizza classes and speak to kind of the difference in those 2 flours and what they are.
Great.
Awesome. All right. I will jump in. So I'll start with King Arthur and who we are just quickly. We've been around for a very long time, founded in 1790. So seriously, a long time. That's when Washington was president. And part of the reason we've been able to stay around so long is because we are focused on making really high quality products. All of our products are held to the highest standards when it comes to specs for milling our flour. So you can ensure that every time you buy a bag of King Arthur flour, you are absolutely going to get the same consistency, the same quality product every time. And a big part of why we care about quality is not just how long we've been around, but it's because we're employee owned. So every person at our organization is an owner. And so we're invested in making sure that we help King Arthur be the best it can be. And we aren't going to let a product out into the market that we aren't super excited about, because we're not reporting to, the stock market. We don't have a street that we're reporting to. It's all about the employee owners. And so something that we've thought about more in the recent past is not just about how the consumer interacts with our product, but how our products impact the planet. And so we've introduced this initiative, Grains for Good, with the goal of 100% of our wheat being sourced from regeneratively grown wheat by 2030. And the goal there is really to make sure that we're sourcing wheat in a way that is incredibly sustainable, so that we know just as long as we've been around, we'll be around for the same amount of time moving forward, and we'll be able to continue to provide wheat and grain to our consumer, because we're doing it in a really sustainable way that's good for farms, good for the planet, and good for the health of the soil, so we can keep, harvesting that grain moving forward. And as part of that, we're also a B Corp. So it's not just about, what we feel is important to focus on. It's really taking an outside look and having a third-party organization say, here's what it means to be a steward of the planet. Here's what it means to care about the consumer. Here's what it means to care about your employee owners. So we have a third party that really looks at everything we're doing to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's really sustainable for the business, for the planet, and for the people who engage with our products. And I spoke a little bit about this. We really are about baking for all bakers. So if you have celiac, we have a line of products that you can use to make sure that you're making a delicious loaf of bread, a delicious pizza, delicious brownies, whatever it is. We don't want you to have to, have a lesser product just because you have something that stops you from using a traditional flour. So we've got a great line of gluten-free products. We've also got products, like I said, that work with entry-level bakers. We've even got flours that work for people who are on the keto diet. So for us, it's really about ensuring every single person can bake, and not just bake, but bake a really good whatever they're baking that they're excited about eating and excited about sharing with their friends. Okay, Grains for Good. So this is the initiative that I mentioned that we've kind of kicked off in the last little bit here as we've thought about sustainability. And the idea is that by 2030, 100% of our flour will be regeneratively grown. But in the short term, as we think about building to that 2030 date, we're starting to introduce flours that are specifically regenerative flours. So we've got two products here, our regeneratively grown climate blend and our golden wheat, that are 100% regeneratively grown flours. And they do some different jobs, which I will get to in a little bit. But first, if you are anything like me, the first time I heard about regenerative agriculture, I said, what is that? Tell me more. I'm interested. I've never heard that term before. And you are not alone. We've talked to consumers and we know that it's still a pretty new term for people. So regenerative agriculture is really about a number of different farming practices that create positive impacts for the planet, the soil, and farming communities. So first of all, how does it positively impact the planet? When we think about climate change, we want to think about lowering emissions and sequestering carbon, so reducing carbon emissions. And one way we can do that is by changing our farming practices. So regenerative agriculture is about tilling less, is about touching that soil less, so you're reducing the amount of carbon that's being emitted into the atmosphere. And when you do that, you actually improve the health of the soil. So by trapping that carbon, you're also trapping nutrients, you're trapping water, you're trapping lots of other good things in the soil. And so when you do that, you create healthier soil. And when you create healthier soil, you have the opportunity to create a system that is more biodiverse. So you do things like plant cover crops, plant different plants in a field, do crop rotations, and really create, again, this environment where there's a lot of biodiversity. That helps, again, improve soil health. When you've got really healthy soil, which is kind of the goal of regenerative agriculture, to have this beautiful, rich, healthy, nutrient-dense soil, you create an ecosystem that is far more resilient. And what that means is, while regenerative agriculture is here to help improve the health of our planet and the health of our soil, we know that climate change is real. It's happening today, and there are longer periods of drought. When we have rain, we often see that rain is heavier and will last longer, and so you can get flooding. And when you've got healthy soil, it can bounce back from that impact a lot faster. So you've trapped water in. So during that period of drought, your plants can actually suck up the water that's already in the soil. During that period of heavy rain, you've got really nice loose soil that isn't dense, isn't compacted, so that water can soak all the way through and kind of stay in that soil. You've got that nice sponge. So you just create this amazing system where your crops can bounce back after a big event like a flood or a drought. And that also is really good for farmers. So healthy soil requires less inputs. So you don't have to put as many pesticides in the soil. You don't have to spend the time and energy tilling and working that soil as much. And at the end of the day, you also get better crop yields. So a farmer is spending less money to farm, and they're getting better yields at the end of the day. So they're making more money off of those acres than they would have on a farm that isn't using regenerative practices. And this is just an image that I like to show because it speaks to the differences between traditional farming and regenerative farming. If you find this interesting, if you find anything I've said interesting, I highly recommend checking out the movie Kiss the Ground. It does a great job of speaking to regenerative farming practices. And this image comes from Kiss the Ground. So you can see here, you've got on the side focused on traditional farming, you've got a farmer who is tilling the ground, you're putting pesticides into the ground. And as you do that, you can see how dense and dry the soil is below. And that's because you're releasing all that water, you're releasing all that carbon into the air, and you're not trapping nutrients in the soil. When you look at the regenerative side of things, you've got a root in the ground at every point in the year. That's helping to, again, trap the water, trap all those nutrients. And with that biodiversity, you can see how lush and green a farm can be with less effort and less inputs. One of the interesting things, too, to think about with regenerative farming, it's not just about biodiversity within plants. In an ideal situation, you also have biodiversity, including bringing animals into a farm that maybe would have had a monoculture before where they were just growing corn. Now you're growing a number of different vegetables, fruits, flowers, and you are bringing in animals that are providing a natural fertilizer. In the case of something like a chicken, they're scratching at the ground, which is good to kind of help bring in more bugs, encourage more growth in the soil with plants. And so really it's about a full ecosystem on a farm instead of those monocultures that are just there to grow one vegetable, one fruit year after year. And we've done some work with the Bread Lab, an organization that was just mentioned. We love the Bread Lab. We've done a lot of work with Dr. Stephen Jones, partnering with him to think about not just how does regenerative agriculture work, but when it comes to regenerative agriculture, what are the best grains for us to plant, for us to focus on for tomorrow that really actually help improve the health of the soil? So it's not just about the practices that farmer is using on their farm, it's about the grains that they're growing. And the Bread Lab is doing amazing work to figure out what grains really we should focus on in the future. What should we use as a cover crop? What wheat should we be growing? What should we be harvesting? And so this is a great video that's worth checking out that talks about kind of our partnership with the Bread Lab and what that means for King Arthur. Okay, and then getting back to the products, as I promised at the beginning here. So Climate Blend is a product that we just launched a little bit ago with Whole Foods. And this product is really focused on regenerative agriculture to its highest degree. So this is a product where we're using grains that have been developed by the Bread Lab in our partnership with them. It is 100% regeneratively grown whole wheat flour. And it's a blend of unique varieties of wheat that really work together to improve soil health. So one of the wheat varieties in this blend is actually a perennial grain. And what that means is a traditional wheat variety you would replant every year. Spring or winter, there's a replanting cycle where you go in and you need to put another seed in the ground to get wheat to grow again the following year. With Climate Blend, we've got a perennial grain in here that will actually grow back year after year for about 5 years. One of the things that I mentioned is really important in regenerative agriculture is that idea of not tilling or not disturbing the soil. And when you've got a perennial grain, you really have the opportunity to let the soil sit and regenerate and get healthy again without doing anything to disturb it. This product gives you a really rich, nutty flavor. It is very much a whole wheat product. It's got a beautiful texture that gives you some chew, some of that kind of typical whole wheat, aspect of when you're working with a whole wheat flour. And it's perfect for all baked goods, but really there's this unique, delicious flavor. We have had consumers across the board when they work with it for the first time say, it's not just a unique whole wheat flavor, it's even more different than that, right? It's got these different flavors that you wouldn't even see in a whole wheat, and that's because of those Bread Lab grains that we're using. Then when you switch over to golden wheat, this is a great product, also 100% sustainably grown with regenerative farming practices. It's got all the nutrition and fiber of whole wheat grains, but it's a little bit softer. So it works more like an all-purpose flour. When you're working with golden wheat, you're not going to have the same texture and flavor that you would if you were using something like Climate Blend. Golden wheat is a great entry-level whole wheat flour. So you can use it if it's your first time kind of working with whole wheat and you want to make the baby step over to a whole wheat product. This is a great place to start. But it's also a flour that we know bakers love and swear by. It's something that they love at the Bread Lab using the golden wheat product because it's really approachable and just makes a delicious, tender, fluffy loaf of bread in a way that is very different from a traditional whole wheat. All right. I think that's all I've got here. So I will stop talking and open it up to any questions.
I have some questions.
All right.
So let's see here. Let's talk about Kiss the Ground movie because I've never seen it. I just put a couple of links in the chat. Looks like I can get it on Amazon or YouTube. Have you seen it?
I have. It's a great movie. It speaks to not just regenerative agriculture, but the impact of farming practices on the climate and climate change more broadly, and then really gets into the health of the soil and why it's important that we focus on restoring soil health and how people can do that.
What's interesting to me, and the reason I ask about the movie is that I live in a bubble. I live in Southern California. The weather's always nice. There's thousands of farms within 100 miles. I go to sometimes 4 farmers markets a week, right? And while, some of these organic or regeneratively grown products can be expensive, I've figured out a way to, weave them into my life. But like I said, I live in a bubble and I feel like I'm very fortunate. So I remember 15 or 20 or even 30 years ago, 40 years ago, my mom was into organic way before anybody else was, right? We were going to like health food stores to source like very specific kinds of breads and flours for cookies. And you really had to go out of your way to find this stuff. And now everywhere you go, there's organic, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, like, what the tipping point is going to be with regenerative agriculture, right? Because to me, it's important because what you guys are doing is great, and what the Bread Lab is doing is great. But Justin can't even pronounce it. I can't even describe it in 30 seconds. I mean, I talk to people about it all the time, and I've been getting a lot of questions on Instagram, right, for some of the posts that I've been doing. And I've started conversations with people, but I'm wondering out loud if you think this is like a good like thing to send friends and family and clients who are considering making the jump, but they don't really know what's in it for them or for the planet.
For sure. You're speaking to kiss the ground and giving that. Yeah, I think it's a great introduction to why regenerative is important. And I think one thing we talk a lot about King Arthur is how few people know what regenerative agriculture is. So if you look at that climate blend packaging, it screams soil health. It screams really clear terms that the consumer can understand, because we know when we say this is a regeneratively grown wheat, that just doesn't mean anything to people right now.
No.
And I think the way to frame it up is to say it is a flour that improves the health of our soil and has a positive impact on our planet and can potentially reverse the effects of climate change. That's what it is. Organic, I think, if you'd said, 20 years ago to a bunch of people, what is organic? They would have said, I don't know. It's like some hippie thing that a lot of hippies are buying, and I don't know what it is, right? We've come to a place where now you could ask anyone on the street, and even if they don't buy organic, they understand what it is. They're going to say, oh, it uses less pesticides. A lot of smaller farms maybe use it. They can give you some general idea of what organic is, and they might even think it's healthier for them, right? Where we are today is, I think, where we were 20 years ago with organic. We're in that place today with regenerative. So it's about educating and teaching people why it's important to use regenerative products. And hopefully, 20 years from now, we're all sitting here saying, I know what organic is. I know what regenerative. I understand, how those positively impact the planet.
Yeah. For me, I'm looking for some kind of cultural tipping point, right?
Totally.
And I don't know if organic ever had that. Maybe it's just been like people hearing about it. But, getting big companies, even bigger than King Arthur, on board is gonna take a lot of pushing, right? It's gonna take a lot of people calling and emailing and texting and saying, hey, why don't you do this, or where can I get that, right?
Yeah. Another great company that is doing things with regenerative agriculture is actually Patagonia, which you wouldn't think clothing company, farming, but they've launched a line called Patagonia Provisions, and they've partnered with different breweries to make regeneratively grown beers. They've done crackers that are made with regeneratively grown flour. So there are big companies that are getting on board with it, but it does tend to be in the natural and organic space. So.
Yeah, I have a few chefs that I'm working with that were using regenerative products, including your flour. And it's great when people approach me and say, hey, what do you know about this? And I have resources.
Yeah.
For me, one of the tipping points in my own personal journey happened really on accident. My wife and I were wine tasting in Mexico, of all places, Valle de Guadalupe. And it's not a place where a lot of Americans go, but a lot of people from Central America know about it. And it's this incredible valley just south of the border in California. And it's inland, so it's hot, and there's not a lot of American tourists there, but they have all these incredible wineries, and they have there's a school there where people send chefs from all over the world to learn about old practices, right? And so we were there with some friends, actually somebody who's going to be on later as well. And we found a school, and my wife found this wine tasting that we went to. And it took place on a farm that utilized regenerative agriculture. And I didn't know what it was. But when I got to the farm, they had all these beautiful weeds, right? And flowers. Now, I've been on a lot of farms, and most of them have no weeds or flowers, right? It also had fields that were like overgrown with all kinds of stuff that was not wine, that was not grapes, right? And so, we did the wine tasting, we did the dinner package, and then I spent like an hour with the farmer, right? And he told me about his journey going from, you know, industrial farming to regenerative farming, and what the tipping point was for him. And after that, I just remember thinking, wow, that was a really happy farm, right? There was lots of animals on the farm, and it was really pretty. It smelled good, and there were pests, but I remember like asking about the weeds and the flowers. He's like, yeah, this is like natural fertilizer, and also like the squirrels don't like this, and the bunnies don't like this, and the whatever insects they were keeping away, they don't like that. And so I was like, wow, this is really next level.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So that's my own personal journey. So I appreciate you taking time on a Saturday to be with us. Justin, are you there?
Yes, yes, yes. I was really, I'm paying attention to all this stuff. I really love making it accessible to people. And I think it's important. The more we talk about it, the more people will just, that's the way it goes these days. And the more King Arthur pitches us out, that pitches it on, all the socials and all that stuff, it becomes something because, I think that we're getting to a point where the wool has been pulled over our eyes for long enough that like you said, climate, what's going on in the world, the climate change, and things are really happening, and it's easy to see unless your head is in the proverbial sand. But this is something that it seems like it's cheaper, it's easier, right? It's better. And you think about how people, they used to grow crops all year round, and it was the seasonal crops, and you'd have a fire in your house, and when the fire would go out, you take your coal ash and you throw it in the garden, because we need minerals and nutrients and vitamins in that soil, because then that gets into our food, which in turn goes into our body. It just makes perfect sense. But unfortunately, I think it's too often these days people are just told, don't worry about it, live your life with blinders, don't think about that stuff. But like you guys are talking about, organic foods, that wasn't a thing when I was growing up. Shoot, recycling wasn't a thing when I was growing up. But it takes awareness. It takes us talking about it. It takes like, like we said, any amount counts. Pick up one piece of garbage, talk to one person about that, show them the movie. I was looking at the Patagonia provisions. They sell the sardines that have the Patagonia thing, and just saying, oh yeah, that is regenerative. I can't say it. One of these days.
You're so close.
I think I'm putting an extra syllable in there somewhere.
Justin, why don't you do what you do with everything? Why don't you make up your own
can't.
word?
It's too many syllables.
How about regen?
Right.
I love.
We say regen ag all the time. You can just go to regen ag. Much easier.
Okay. Regen
ag.
Ag. Oh, regen ag. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to implement that. But I really love. One of my mantras is we're all stewards of the same ship. And it takes awareness, and it takes big companies like Noel said, like King Arthur, who a lot of people do recognize as a beacon in the baking world and in the cooking world and the pizza world, that I says, hey guys, this is important, and hopefully maybe we can get some other of the the guys or the gals or whoever's making the decisions on the big corporate agriculture out there, that says let's not focus on the profits, let's focus on the planet, and then actually feeding people again. So good stuff. I'm excited, Katie, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to show us all that stuff. Noel, you want to say anything?
Thank you, Katie.
All right,
Thank
Katie.
you. It was great being here. I really appreciate the time. Thank you both.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon, okay?
Yep, sounds good.
All right.
Bye.
Very exciting. Now, I don't want to jump. I don't want to put the cart before the old horse. But doing these classes, is King Arthur's going to be giving a little deal coupon code maybe for some of that flour that they're coming up with?
Yeah. So we're gonna have. There's gonna be 25% off. Those 2 or 3 flowers.
Oh wow.
And we've got 25% off coming from Hayden Mills as well. So
Great.
I'll go live this week with the registration page, and all that information will be there.
People be able to find that stuff. I'm sure you'll be putting it out on the old Grams.
It's all. I mean, it's at Whole Foods. I've been getting. I've got a few people that are helping me work on. I just given them like the recipe for the beginner class and the intermediate class, and people are surprised that both of those flours are already there at their local Whole Foods.
You got to hook me up, man. You got to send me a recipe. I've been making some pies. You know how we do.
Well, I do, Justin. But here's the thing. I'm starting with professional bakers, and then you are a home baker. You're next. You're next.
I see how you box me in. Baby step is still a step. Who's coming up next?
Justin, how many quarts is your KitchenAid? That's my question.
My KitchenAid, I think I upgraded.
Oh, you upgraded. So to what?
I think I have an 8-quart
bowl.
Wow. So I think it's a 6.5, but I pushed it. I bought a aftermarket 8-quart bowl.
I've seen those. Do they work?
Yeah, it works great. It works great because I'll do a 10 or 12 batch, but this is my move. Sometimes the dough likes to creep up, so I have to ride
I know exactly what you do.
I have to ride the lever, so it's just enough that the dough isn't creeping up. But
do you know? Can you put a link to that in the chat?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. It was just the Church of Bezos, the Amzo Bezo. I will put that link in the chat for the larger bowl. Now I have the professional mixer it says professional. It's not the curly Q. It's not the Captain Hook. It's the curly Q. It's not the tilt back. It's the up and down with the lever. But it does give me instead of doing 6 doughs or 8, I can push 10 to 12 at between 280 or to 340 depending on.
What's the maximum number of grams you can get out of that bowl so far? Do you know?
I would have to look back.
Get back to us. I got to talk to Cameron and James.
Okay. So who's coming on? Who are these guys? Cam and Jimmy. I hear from San Diego.
Correct. They are our friends. These are our sourdough startup friends.
Leaven Foods.
Yeah.
Is that what I hear?
These are
the science of sourdough.
Science of sourdough. Yeah.
I still think you have one last science of sourdough that you have yet to put up on.
Oh God!
The
all right.
The old thing.
You're
all
right.
All right. Without any further ado, I'm going to bring our friends on. Cameron and Jimmy, come on down. Our friends at Leaven Foods, gentlemen. It's wonderful to see you.
You too.
James, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Noel?
You guys are both there in the same room, so one of you is on mute while the other one talks. It's going to be interesting to see if you can keep this up.
I'm the spokesperson for now.
There we go.
And then we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'm going to bounce off, let you guys chit chat. If you guys are going to share some images, you know what to do. See you in a little bit.
There you go. All right. So, what's going on?
Not much, man. We're just hanging out here in sunny San Diego and looking forward to talking to everybody about doing their own research. So,
doing their own research?
Yes, we're excited about it.
We can do that?
You certainly can, Noel.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Normally I like to give like an introduction, but I'm not going to give you guys an introduction because I feel like so many of the people that are going to be watching this on YouTube have already checked out our Science of Sourdough. So as the saying goes, you really need no introduction to the people who are down with pizza and sourdough on YouTube. But For people who don't know, maybe you could give a brief introduction yourself into, like, number one, what you do for a living, number two, what your connection to pizza is, and number three, what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so I guess the good place to start is Cameron and I both work for a company called Leaven Foods. It's a company that we've started, and the goal of our company is to make sourdough microbes in an easy and instant package. So everybody can make sourdough without a starter, with lots of health benefits, right? And those will be measurable. And so that's what we're currently working on. And Cameron and I both have backgrounds in molecular biology and microbiology and computer science, and working with bacteria and yeast. So
awesome. And so tell me, what is your mission today?
Our mission today is to help everybody, empower everybody, right, to be able to do their own research. So we hear out so often, people say, well, do your own research, like, here's what I'm telling you, but do your own research. And I think most of us, unless we're in the sciences, we don't really understand where that starts. So we're going to help everybody with a primer to easily be able to do their own research and inform themselves. And that's, it's empowering and really, really valuable skill for not just doing health and nutrition research, but other places in life. So
beautiful. Now, the reason that I asked you guys to do this is because myself personally, I've been trying to do my own research, and I run into a lot of dead ends. And what I mean by that is that I will see a YouTube video, or I'll see something on Instagram, and they'll cite a study or something, and I'll be like, I don't know if that sounds right. And then I'll go and try to find the study. And if I can find it, I don't even understand what I'm reading, right? And so I don't have a science background. And so I was hoping you guys could come on and help people who, like me, want to get to the source of what it is that people are talking about. And so often, for whatever reason, I feel like they're misrepresenting these studies, right? And so when somebody who sounds like they know what they're talking about says something that I know is absolutely not true, but then they cite a source that I can't even understand, that's where you guys come in, right?
Yeah, I think that's like the idea is to enable everybody, show people where to find these studies, and then how to read them, what's important, and how to interpret them for their own use. And you don't need to have a science degree. You just need to know how to read, So we'll be able to help you, sort yourself out and figure out how to do this research.
Beautiful. Well, let's get this party started, shall we?
Yes.
Awesome.
So I guess we're going to start here with why do your own research, And I think we've kind of hinted at it that, there's so much out there where people are misleading, or they have these bias and they have an agenda. And that's not really accurately representing, the current research that's out there. So the number one thing with doing your own research, right, is you get the information directly from the source. You don't get this kind of interpretation that might have some bias. So, I think we have a couple anecdotes to start that kind of highlights why this is important, why eliminating bias is important. One, I don't know if all your listeners are old enough, but I remember when I was a kid growing up, in the 90s, there was this hysteria about movie popcorn and coconut oil, and it contained too much saturated fat, and everybody was going to get heart disease from this, and it was a big deal, and the movie theaters needed to stop. And really, this just came about with no strong research behind coconut oil. It was a consumer advocacy group that put this out in the media, and you know, they had their own agenda there. But anyway, you know, coconut oil got stripped from the movie theater popcorn, and it didn't return back until much later when we've actually taken a different approach on saturated fats, or there's new opinions about the health of coconut oil, and some people actually see it as a superfood now, which is crazy. And then the other example would be the vilification of MSG. And so this, if for those that don't know, this kicked off in 1968 with a New England Journal of Medicine letter. So a doctor wrote a letter and said, you know, oh, you know, I went out and ate Chinese food with my family and I got tingling in my extremities. You know, it must have been from MSG. And then this kicked off a series of research where misguided research looking into MSG. There was a few studies published that said, oh yeah, MSG is terrible. It does all these things. And these studies were later debunked. But, you know, in both these cases, it was people with these agendas and, you know, biased research. And so, you know, it's really helpful to get your information directly from the source, I guess, and help you dispel kind of some of this bias that's dictated, you know, consumption trends in the U.S. Another thing is it helps you, doing your own research helps you verify or check the validity of what is being disseminated to you. So you can check, you know, oh, I heard this about eggs and cholesterol, or I heard this, and you can get it directly from the source. So you can check if that's valid. And then ultimately, this is, you know, it's empowering. It gives you the freedom to be get your own ideas, you know, and understand what's actually being disseminated by this research, and you don't have to listen to somebody else. So I think those are all the advantages of, or at least some of them, of doing your own research. With that, I'll shift it over to Cam, and he'll give a rundown on how to actually begin doing this.
All right. Hi, Noel.
Hi, Cameron.
All right. So the first thing about understanding how, you know, what the difference is between academic research and research that you know, is reliable and maybe less reliable research is the peer review system. So peer review is what all kind of published research. You probably have heard the term peer review before, but it's an important concept. So I'm going to run through it really quickly. Basically, you know, you do a study, you generate some data, and you have some conclusions and figures and results to back that up, and you want to publish that and disseminate that information, which the taxpayers normally pay for, back out to the public. But you can't just really post that onto a journal and say, okay, this is good. There's a process to do that that's in place to make sure that research is vetted beforehand. So what you do, you write the article, then you submit it to a journal who has editors, which usually are other scientists who specialize kind of in the editorial process. They can either determine right off the bat, okay, this paper is good or bad. I'm going to send this to review, or I'm going to just reject it outright. In which case you might need to rewrite the paper or submit it to another journal. If it's accepted for review, it goes to at least 3 of your peers who you don't work with or don't have a connection to, right? So if I wrote a paper, I can't have James peer review my paper because he's going to be biased towards accepting it, right? Because we're friends. And that then gets, after it goes through peer review, the peers come up with the questions or concerns they have with the study, and they send it back through the editor to you. You don't know who these people are most of the time. Most of the time it's blinded. And then it goes through a series of revisions, anywhere between 1 revision of the paper, all the way up. I've seen 5 or even 10 revisions sometimes. And this process can take anywhere between a year to a decade before a paper is written and then out in press in the public where you'd see it in a journal. And so it's really important because it keeps authors from disseminating information that the rest of the field might believe is faulty. But it's not perfect. So peer review, just like anything else, human beings are involved. And so there's some things you should think about when you're reading peer-reviewed publications. So the first things are reproducibility and replicatability. So they're two separate concepts. So the first one is basically I get somebody's data or someone's results. Can I regenerate those results from their data? And that's like I'm in the kitchen with Noel and he just baked a pizza. We made the dough together. Can I, in his kitchen, make the same pizza as him with all the same ingredients and dough that he used? And then the other one is more, can you regenerate the same thing from scratch? So Noel sends me a recipe. Can I make the exact same pizza as him at home? And that's really important in science because when you have one study, it's important that it gets regenerated by multiple other independent sources. It helps strengthen the argument that the conclusions are correct, right? When a lot of different people reproduce the same findings and at different times with different technologies and with different cohorts of people or whatever the model organism is. And then the other thing is more statistical. So, is there a large sample size? And that's where having a knowledge of statistics helps. But generally speaking, the larger the number of people or samples in the study, the more reliable it is, right? So if you have a study where you only have 10 people, that's generally less reliable than if you have a study that has 10,000 or even 25,000 people, right? You're just getting a larger distribution of the different variants you can see in a population. And then there's demographics, right? So for example, if you're a person reading a study and you have low cholesterol and the study is exclusively studying people with high cholesterol, that study might be less interesting for you. But that applies across all kinds of demographics, right? Men and women responding to drugs, pregnant versus non-pregnant people. There's all kinds of demographics that can impact how the results are interpreted of the study. There's human versus model organisms, right? So humans are hard to control. If I tell everybody, go home and do a plant-based diet for, 2 months and we're going to see the difference, a lot of people are going to sneak a bagel here and there, or they're going to just, it's hard to control what people are consuming and things like that. And there's even more extreme examples. And so we use things like model organisms like mice. Where we can control what diseases they have by editing the mouse's genome, or we can give them certain diseases and try and take them away with drugs before we move on to human studies. But you have to keep in mind that mice aren't humans, and so they have different reactions to things. And then there's the journal information. So, there's different qualities of journals. There's predatory journals, we'll talk about it later on. And the most important thing, too, is a publication date. So look, was this published in 1980 or 2024 might change how you interpret the results because science might have updated the technology that's available to generate data since then. So the first thing, we're going to talk about primary and secondary articles, so the type of literature that's available. Primary literature is where the author generated the data that they're using to present in the paper. So they're the primary source of that information. And the main place where I think, is useful to find primary literature is Google Scholar. It's basically the same as Google. You can search within it, but it limits your results to just scientific articles, mostly that, have been peer reviewed and vetted. So you can see kind of a filter away of all the secondary articles like journalistic articles and things like that you would normally get popped up on Google ahead of whatever your search term was. And there's different types of primary articles too. So there's different types of journals that publish the scientific information. So there's extremely technical journals, right? Like I'm a microbiologist, so I like microbiology journals like the American Society for Microbiology, which has very specific articles about microbiology and even different types of journals within microbiology. But it's more technical because it's very specific to a certain field. And then there's more general publications like Nature. So that journal has lots of different subsidiaries. You've probably seen a Nature magazine in the airport, for example. And they publish research that is really impactful to the broader community of science and is broader. And then there's somewhere in between like Cell, which publishes high impact general things, but is much more technical than Nature. Really long, detailed papers. And then there's open and closed source. So for example, Nature has paywalls. You have to pay to get into most of these Nature articles versus the Society Journal, ASM for microbiology is an open source mostly, meaning that it's paid for by the society to publish and pay the editors to control what's going through and things like that. And then there's something you really need to be careful. It's called predatory journals. And that's the term that's used in science. Basically, they seem like peer-reviewed research, but they kind of cheat the system to try and publish as many papers as possible. And they publish a lot of junk papers that you need to be careful about. So there's lists online. If you search predatory journals and you're unsure about a journal, you can search it on one of these websites. If you Google search predatory journals, there's a bunch of lists of journal names where you could search for the journal that you're looking at the paper for and make sure it's not from something that's suspect before you read the paper. So the way these articles are structured is there's an abstract, which is basically a 1 paragraph long blurb about the paper in general. So it's kind of a too long, didn't read, a TLDR, which describes the problem, the related work, what's new that they found, and what the conclusion of the study is. There's an introduction, which breaks down in more detail what came before the article and what the hypothesis is. There's the results, which describe the findings in detail through figures and tables. There's the conclusion, which is self-explanatory, and then there's the materials and methods, which describe the experiments in extreme detail to the point where another scientist could replicate the results. Your recipe, Noel, should be detailed enough that somebody can do it at home, right? Same thing. So how should you go about trying to determine if and how to read these articles in what order, right? So the way that I generally decide whether or not I'm going to read an article, I think is valuable to go through this process is you see the article, you find it through Google Scholar or whatever. You open it up, start with the abstract. So it could take even 5-15 minutes just to read this 1 paragraph because it's quite dense. But you read the abstract, understand the conclusion, and we'll go through the process of how you do that. If you're not interested, just stop reading because it's going to take you a long time to read the rest of the paper. If you're still interested, read the introduction. So that breaks down what's been published before in this area, the findings before up to this point in this field, and what their hypothesis is. If you're still interested after that point, read the conclusion, the discussion section, and determine if you're interested in kind of what the results have to say in a longer form, more than the 1 sentence in the abstract. Now, if you're really interested in what they found, and you want to determine your own opinion, and if you think that this is good research and that really understand what the conclusion is, and I think this is the part that most people skip, right? Sometimes they'll misinterpret because they don't actually read what the group did in detail, and that's to read the methods and the results. And this takes a lot longer. So this could take anywhere from 2 to 5 hours. I spent days before reading long papers between the methods and the results before I determine my own opinion about the paper. But it's really important. Now you really understand what they did, what they found, and you can form your own opinion that lasts about that and that you could defend. So it's a really important process, but you can kind of filter before you get to that 2 to 5 hour dedication to the paper by your interest level. So reading some of these papers can be really intimidating, right? If you pull up a scientific article, sometimes the language that's used is really overwhelming, the jargon that's used. As Richard Feynman once said, it's not complicated, there's just a lot of it. And so you kind of need to start at the beginning to understand what's going on, right? So you read a sentence like this: alternating high-fat diet enhances atherosclerosis by neutrophil reprogramming, right? That's extremely overwhelming. This isn't my field. I'm even overwhelmed by that sentence, right? So, okay, are we interested in this paper? Let's check out the abstract. So how do we do that? How do we decide if we, want to read this paper and understand how the authors did the study and what their conclusion was before we dive into the rest of the paper? The first thing that I do, and different scientists might have different ways of doing this, but I think this is a helpful exercise, is I first just identify the words or terms that I don't know already especially those related to the conclusion. So I have in the red boxes the terms that I didn't know immediately, and then with the orange line is the conclusion of the paper. It's usually at the end of the abstract. So you can kind of tell by the structure of it. You know, this study highlights, this study found, is kind of the language that they use in the conclusion. Once I did that, I just start Google searching either through regular Google or through Google Scholar, trying to understand what the terms mean one by one, right? And each term might take you, 5 to 10 minutes. And the more you do this too, the more you'll build up your knowledge base roughly of what these terms mean, especially within a certain field. And then you will get over that burden in the beginning of having to understand all of this and be able to get through these papers faster and faster. But to start, let's say, okay, so this first sentence about atherosclerosis, what is this? Basically, okay, they're talking about high cholesterol can build up fatty plaque in the blood, leading to a lot of issues. Okay, the pipes are getting clogged, right? I've heard of that before. I kind of know that. And then let's go to this next one. So they say, I didn't highlight this one all the way, but high fat diet. This is just an abbreviation. So people will, because they'll use the same term a lot in a paper like this, they'll abbreviate it and use HFD now everywhere. So they're not saying high fat diet, high fat diet, high fat diet, taking up a lot of space, right? So look for these and remember what these abbreviations are. The next one, look at this thing is, what on earth is LDLR negative and ApoE negative mice? I don't know anything about that. Okay, let's Google search just those two terms. And those are pretty scientific terms. So the top hit's going to be a scientific paper, right? And the first thing that popped up on just a regular Google search was this paper that's on the NCBI, which is a government website for publications. And the first paragraph of the paper just explained what this was. Basically, they edited the genome of a mouse that precludes it to getting atherosclerosis. So they're able to give a mouse atherosclerosis so they can study this problem, right? If you can induce the disease, then you can try and figure out why it's happening or different mechanisms of what's going on in the mouse. This one, you can see there's a little number here, 3. What that is a citation. They might be formatted differently, but they usually have links like this. If you click on it, it will take you to the paper, and you can look there on what the results are of that and kind of understand what these are. And then this IL beta, okay, so this is talking about inflammatory stuff, immune cells. You could do a rough search on this and kind of just get a basic idea. Okay, the immune system is really important in atherosclerosis, and they're modulating it somehow to make sure that they can study how it's impacting the mice. So they're just making sure they control things that they need to study. And that's as high, you just keep it at a high level, right? Basic understanding of what the different terms are. So now we can try and translate, now that we kind of have a basic understanding of the terms, we can go back and try and translate the conclusion to determine if we want to read the rest of the paper. So, okay, so the conclusion is this study highlights the role of IL-1 beta dependent neutrophil progenitor reprogramming and accelerated atherosclerosis and induced by alternating HFD, high fat diet, right? So we take all those terms that we learned, we process them, and we get, okay, yo-yo dieting, we're going on and off a high-fat diet, alternating off a high-fat dieting. Yo-yo dieting can accelerate, they say it right there, accelerate atherosclerosis faster than just staying on a high-fat diet to start with, right? So continuing on your high-fat diet, your Western diet, is better than yo-yoing back and forth between a different diet and that. It can cause inflammation in mice. So they did all of this in mice. Right? They mentioned mice exclusively. I haven't seen anything about humans. So that's an example of how to kind of vet abstract. Break it down like that. Don't get overwhelmed. Just Google. It might take you 20 minutes, right? But this is how you go through the process. And the more you do it, the easier it will get. And if you really want to try and do this, an easy way to do it, and scientists do this, is to create what we call a journal club. It's basically a book club, but for journal articles. So you have like 5 friends, and you're interested in understanding this research. You find a paper that you guys all think is interesting or has gotten a lot of press, and you want to understand the primary literature. You go back to the main paper. You all read it. try to understand it, and then you talk about it together. The things you liked, you didn't like, what your opinions, do your opinions agree or disagree, and why? And that can help you understand it even deeper. And there's some papers that James could understand better than I could understand, and we can teach each other through the process, you know? Okay, so then there's secondary articles. That's primary literature. Secondary articles is where the author gathers existing data or information and then report and analyze or interpret that other data. So they're not the original source of the data, they're representing it. There's peer-reviewed secondary articles. So that's review papers, I think, are the most valuable, and we're going to jump into that in more depth in a second. But that basically is a summary of all the existing knowledge on a certain topic. And there's usually some interpretation at the very end about like the author's opinion about where the research field should go. But they're really useful for getting a broad strokes on the field in general. And then there's meta-analyses. And these are more statistical papers where they take 10 or 20 studies that all studied the same thing and see if they agree or not statistically. And so these are a little bit more dense. They're more read like primary literature than a review. A review is more general. So I think reviews are really useful. Meta-analyses are great too, but for a person at home, I think review papers are probably more helpful. And then there's non-peer-reviewed secondary articles, which we're all familiar with, right? Journalism, podcasts, Noel's Pizza Hour on Saturday, social media, right? Where you're getting information from secondary sources, and it could be good. I mean, that's now a totally different evaluation source, right? Not necessarily bad, just different from peer-reviewed. So how do you find review articles? So again, back to Google Scholar, you can find them on there. Just add the key term review paper, and you'll get some that pop up, just like you would search for primary literature, atherosclerosis review, and you can find the most recent paper or review paper in a good journal about that. There's specific review journals which only post reviews on certain topics. So I think we'll put the link out, but this basically is a screenshot from the Nature journal that I highlighted earlier. They have a subsidiary journals, which is basically journals within their journal that only do review papers on all different topics: bioengineering, clean technologies, earth and environment. Like we were talking about regenerative farming. I'm sure they have review papers in depth about regenerative farming and different types. Gastroenterology, which would be more closely aligned to diet and things like that. But it's endless. There's a lot of review articles, and they make really high quality articles. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to James again, and talk about, if I can mute myself, and he's going to talk really quickly about one last thing.
Okay, so beyond literature, there's some other, there's another source specifically for food additives for those that are interested. I know people look at the back of labels a lot, and they kind of wonder, what are these things, and maybe how did they get into our food? And so one thing in the US is this thing called the FDA Generally Recognized as Safe List, or GRAS list for short. And this is kind of like a history of food additives and what people petition the FDA with in order to get these food additives approved for food use. Now, this resource only goes back to 1999, although the GRAS list has existed since 1958. And so if you're interested in, say, for instance, what's on this list right now, how did Bacillus subtilis, how was that started to use in food? You could click on this link that's here and find out, like, what did they submit to the FDA in order to get this, approved for use in food. Now, one thing to note is that there is this thing called self-declaration of GRAS, where you've determined internally that it is safe, and you don't have to go through this FDA process, and therefore it wouldn't be on this list. You have all the liability from a company if you're going to do that. So most companies would prefer to go through this FDA process, but that is another route, and you won't find those food substances on this list. So that's just something to watch out for. And I think that wraps us up.
That wraps you up? Oh my
Yeah,
God. I'm
I think we're
swimming in
done.
information. Swimming.
Yeah. Amazing, right?
Actually, I took a half a page of notes, and I also have your PowerPoint presentation. So I think it's a lot to unpack, but at the same time, I find it really empowering because now I understand like some super basic stuff like Google Scholar. For whatever reason, it never came up. Right.
Yeah.
I understand primary articles and secondary articles, obviously super important, where to find them, how they're structured, how to read them. I don't know if I can incorporate this one yet, but how not to be intimidated. Right. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that you guys really break it down, and how even like the flow charts and everything, those are a little intimidating, but not as intimidating as a 55-page like science journal article with 200 pages of footnotes or whatever you call those things, right? So anyway, you guys, that was super helpful. I'm excited to review the PowerPoint again and get this stuff up on YouTube for all the people that are going to watch it. So thank you for contributing. I hope that I can invite you guys back to one of the classes, probably the sourdough class, which is going to be the advanced class on November 2nd. So I know you haven't agreed to it yet. Nancee brought it up, but I'm happy that you guys agreed to come to this one. And even if you don't do any presentations on November 2nd, hopefully you guys can join us for the sourdough class, because I'm going to be using the sourdough made with your microbes. Super excited about that, and so hopefully you guys will too, and we can talk about some of the health benefits, and you can check our math.
Yeah, it'd be great to be there.
And also just like help us make delicious, nutritious, delicious, if I already didn't mention that, nutritious back and forth pizza, because that's really the most important thing. And I mean, I taught you guys to make pizza. When I first met you, you were making something with your microbes that resembled a pizza, and now you make delicious pizza, don't you?
Yeah,
Actually, that's not fair. That's not fair.
No, it's fair, but we're trying to make delicious pizza now, and I think we have a better handle on it than we did previously. So
absolutely. So, and thank you for really, I can't thank you enough, because I asked you to do something that maybe was out of your comfort zone, or that, I like having these conversations with you guys. Like, too bad I can't record the Zooms that led up to this, where you guys are like, no, we can't do that. No, we're not going to do this. No. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? And they're like, we'll do this. I'm like, perfect. That's what I meant to say. I just didn't have the words.
Yeah,
so
well,
you
thanks
guys,
for having us.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, so stick around if you want. We're going to talk to Philip Otto next, who I'm super excited about. Philip, don't come on. We have to ring the big blue bell for you. Justin.
See you guys. Yeah, great stuff. I mean, do the research, I mean, that's the thing. Let the research guide you. And the more we know how to better kind of understand it, figure out what it's actually saying, so we can be informed about the decisions we make. It's super important, because, you look at all these different things that are on here on what people are submitting to the Food and Drug Administration. You got to do the research, because I think people are trying to weasel in some funky stuff. No, Philip Otto. Who is Philip Otto? What's going on
here? I have no idea, but we're going to find out.
Okay, great. Well, Philip Otto, if you're there, can I blue bell you on down, my friend? And turn, yes. Hello.
Hey, Justin. Hey, Noel.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. We're just hanging out.
I know. It's always fun to be talking about pizza on a Zoom on Sunday. It feels like we're back in pandemic times.
Yeah.
No, it does not. Take it back.
Those are the days, huh? Those are the days.
That's right.
I mean, good things come from bad situations sometimes, right?
Yeah, 100%. A lot of us learned we don't need to actually go in to somewhere to work. We can just hang out at home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, in sweatpants, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah,
I'm not wearing
you
any
can't
pants.
see what I'm wearing, right?
You're doing that. I think you're wearing a midriff T-shirt. That's what you're hiding your six pack. That's what you're doing.
Very comfortable. Yes.
Very comfortable. All right. Well, Justin, I'll see you in a few. Thank you so much. Philip, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Noel.
So you are one of many people that I reached out to as a potential collaborator. And you are not a chef. You are not a professional pizza maker, right? But you are, in my mind, somebody who represents I don't know. I don't want to build you up too much, but I knew you when you were a kid, right? We met in the 90s. Feels
Right.
like the 1890s at this point, but it was the 1990s. And I started coming to your family's, I'll call it a juice joint, juice club. What is it?
Yeah, juice joint, juice club, all good descriptors. We've been called, white tiled walk-in closet. So my parents started Beverly Hills Juice in 1975. And we started on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood. And in 79, they moved to our current location on Beverly. And as you can imagine, this was long before juice became a thing in LA.
Before Jamba Juice, even?
Before Jamba Juice.
Impossible.
Before the
Impossible.
juice craze. Before, all manner of celebrity, collabs. And yeah, my father, who used to be an agent in the music business, and his father owned a steakhouse. So my dad grew up, eating steak 3 times a day and being in the music business, which was, a hard business. And at a certain point, he kind of realized like, oh, my father died young, his father died young, like the trajectory I'm going on, like this is not going to end, in a long life. So he started to get into his health and started to read books about health and juicing and nutrition. And he lived in the Hollywood Hills, and he would have people over at his house, and he started making them carrot juice. And, soon he kind of developed a following of people who would hang around and come out for the juice. And, pretty soon his friends started to say, why don't you start selling this? And he realized like, oh, this is my opportunity to make a transition and to do something positive for myself personally. He was also starting a family. My sister was born that year. And so, started this juice business, and, almost 50 years later, it's still going. We're super small, but we're very much true to the ethos in which we started. We love supporting local farmers and creating interesting juices using seasonal local ingredients, and really just being an offering to the community and making juice for our friends and our family. And we're making the juice that we want to drink and we want to give out to our friends, and we're lucky enough to be supported by customers. New people find out about us every day, but we also have people who come in and they're like, oh, I remember you when, before you could see over the counter and you were still like, you were here. And, that's really beautiful to see, kind of the way that we've hopefully been able to be, part of the community and making Angelenos, mildly healthier, juice by juice.
Juice by juice. So I think it's really interesting to hear you tell the story, because sometimes I forget about like your dad's journey, right? And how your dad, and I met your dad before I met you. I owned a nightclub in West Hollywood, and I would stop there every morning and buy a ton of juice.
Yeah.
And I was one of many people, right? And I would usually get a banana manna right? And then maybe 6 juices. I would drink 2 or 3 during the day and give them the other ones to bartenders and waiters. And I was trying to get my partner to eat healthier, but I was on a journey, right? Because I was living such an unhealthy life, working 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? I had a chef working for me who would make any pasta, any seafood, any steak, anything. I could eat anything I wanted, right? And I was like running myself ragged. I wasn't eating right. And one day I happened to across your business, and I went in there and I had probably a carrot beet or something like that. And I was like, I don't know if I like this, but it feels good for me. Right. And then I came back the second day, and I think I got, what was that big green thing you guys used to sell? Or Big Ten? You still have that?
Yeah, it's a classic. Yep.
Your dad got me drinking the Big Ten, and that was like for years. I drank that every day for lunch. That was my meal replacement. And it was just because this kitchen wasn't open yet. We were prepping, and I wanted to eat something healthy. And usually I would do crazy amounts of exercise in the morning, and I needed calories and I needed nutrition. And actually, the banana manna is something that I don't know how many calories or how many dense nutrients are in that thing, but that's about 3-4 hours for me. Like, you could be running a marathon after you drink one of those. What are they? 16 ounces, 20 ounces?
24 ounces.
24 ounces. Oh my God. So anyway, it was funny because I was in the music business. Your dad was in the music business. We talked. Your dad had been on a journey which ended there. There you were under the counter making juice, and then you went into the back and started like pressing the juice, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then we kind of reconnected when you showed up at the farmers market, right? And you've worked for Beverly Hills Juice Club. You've worked for Tutti Frutti. You're a free agent for sure.
I love farmers markets. It feels like kind of my natural habitat.
I like
grew
that.
up going to farmers markets, and it's a really sweet community. So it was really fun to meet you at the farmers market, because I didn't remember you from my childhood. And you were volunteering to wash our blenders, and it's like, great, who is this nice guy who wants to talk about juice and wash our blenders, be our volunteer?
Well, hold on, you're misrepresenting. I didn't want to wash your blenders. It was my day off. I was so happy to see.
Enthusiastic about dishes.
I was so happy to see Beverly Hills Juice in Santa Monica in walking distance. Number one, and number two, there was only 2 of you, and you were making all the juices and washing all the blenders. And so I was like, wait a minute, this is at least a 3-person job. And I was coming every Sunday, and I did not offer the first Sunday. The first Sunday, I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. And the next Sunday, I think I was like, hey, Philip, can I help you? You're like, yeah, wash these 6 blenders. I'm like, great. Run, wash the blenders, come back, sweated my ass off, had a great time. And you rewarded me with like a refrigerator full of juice. I'm like, plus I was drinking banana manas while I was washing for you. I love that stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So that was super fun to reconnect. And then since then, I've been to your house at least a half a dozen times, if not more, eating your delicious food.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love food. I love to cook. And so it's always fun to make food and share food with people who love it.
So one of the reasons that I thought we would do a collab is because not only do we share a history and a love for farmers market and local sustainable food, but actually you've made some pizza for me before that did not use wheat flour that I actually thought was delicious.
Yeah. So, probably about a decade ago, I started to be interested in reducing my kind of gluten intake. I don't have any gluten intolerances, but I have friends that do. And, I'm always interested in exploring kind of alternatives and different options. And so that led me to start working with cassava flour. And I started to make pizza or a pizza approximation with cassava flour. And even now, like I continue to kind of explore pizza in various forms. But I'm still just struck at how, like, I find cassava flour so easy to work with. Like, it's actually, to me, as a very much not professional, it's actually a lot easier to me to work with than a lot of other flours. So yeah, I'm excited to share that with you and the Slow Rise community, and yeah, have some fun making some gluten-free pies.
Good. So one of the things that I really liked about that pizza was that, number one, it didn't come from a mix, which a lot of people rely on, right? And a lot of the mixes that I've used have a lot of additives to them and binders and fillers. And I don't quite know what all those ingredients are, but I remember not wanting to eat whatever it was you were serving, except for the toppings. And then when I tried it, I was like, wow, this texture is actually really good. And I like the flavor. And then I think you made it again. I think we came back like on my request.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I didn't want to like it, but I couldn't stop eating it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about cassava flour a little bit. I didn't know what it was until I met my wife, and we went to Argentina, and they make these little cheese balls with it, right? Chipa,
Yeah.
they call it. And it's got a million names. They call it tapioca flour, cassava flour. If you Google it, there's like 16 different names. It's a starch, it's a flour, it's a root. There's a lot of really cool videos on YouTube where the way that they extract it, from the root itself is like, it reminds me of the way that when you see like tequila being made in Mexico.
Yeah.
There's a lot of machinations to get to the source of it, and so it ends up being kind of expensive. But anyway, I've been working with it lately as a raw material, and I like the flavor, I like the texture. I'm doing some research right now into what value it has for people who are either gluten intolerant or celiac. In terms of sources, what is your favorite source for the flour?
I really like Otto's. Not related to me, but we share a name. My last name is Otto. So I've tried a lot of different cassava flours, and the thing I like about Otto's is it tends to be it's very neutral in its flavor, and it's very fine and consistent in its consistency, which I find makes it easiest to work with, particularly if you're trying to use it as a substitute for other flour, or you're trying to just make something that doesn't have you're trying to like not impart a real flavor into it. So a lot of the other cassava flours I've tried have a little more of like a nutty flavor to them, which can be nice or fine in certain things, but I find more often than not, I want something that's just like going to be neutral and going to accept whatever other flavors I'm kind of, mixing in together.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to work with it. I haven't used Otto's, but that's why I was asking. I've used Authentic Foods. I've used Bob's Red Mill. So I'm going to buy some Otto's and start kind of playing around with it. What about toppings? Tell me how do you conceive of your pizza toppings?
Yeah, I mean, I conceive of my pizza toppings the same way that I tend to cook, which is I'm at the farmer's market every week buying for the store. And so, whatever kind of looks good to me there ends up being what I cook that week, and inevitably ends up on a pizza. I love fresh tomato on pizza, so I tend to, in season, like not make sauces. I will just thinly slice tomato, and it's as when the ingredients are really good, the less you do to them, the better. So that's kind of my favorite. And in California, we're lucky to have really long seasons. We're lucky to have great tomatoes for a long part of the year. So usually always like one of the pizzas that I make will be just like mostly tomato.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also will usually make another pizza that has whatever, you know, seasonal vegetables there are in season. I also have been experimenting with some like fruitier ones as well. Kind of just, you know, again, like I'm looking at whatever looks good and in season, and then figuring out, you know, what are interesting flavors I can pair with it. But I tend to find, you know, simple tends to be better. And, you know, so, you know, we're like stone fruit is kind of just now on its way out. But I'm looking forward to, you know, kind of getting more into fall crops. So we have some really beautiful fall squashes that are starting to come in.
Yeah.
We're going to have persimmons soon. And then, of course, you know, we also have the beauty of, you know, there are so many kind of constants that are around. So all manner of beautiful onions and garlic.
Perfect. Yeah.
And, you know, you really can't go wrong. You know, tons of like cruciferous stuff, which is great. Brussels sprouts, cauliflower.
I'm just making notes because I think what would be really fun is before we do our class, let's walk the market together. What day do you usually go? Are you there on Wednesday super early?
Yeah. Yep.
How early? How early?
I'm usually there by 6:30.
Oh, geez. Okay. That's all right. I can do it. I can do it.
It's really fun to be
like,
you know, like sometimes you'll get stuff that doesn't even make its way to the table. It just goes straight from like the back of the truck.
I know.
To
I know.
your
It's
cart.
incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
You know?
I know.
Fantastic.
I mean, you and I are unwilling converts because I believe your dad dragged you to the market like my dad dragged me to the market. In the 1980s, I don't know what year it started, but I was in high school. So that was like probably 82, 83.
Amazing. Yeah.
And it was small. I thought, why are we buying food on the sidewalk when I think there's a Ralph's or a Safeway, like right on Lincoln there? Weird.
Yeah. They have like refrigeration and lighting and like, what are we doing out? Yeah.
I don't think there was Whole Foods yet, but I think there was a Mrs. Gooch's or something up the block.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, I think that it's going to be really fun. And I think that like all of the points that you raised are like in really I can align with, right? And I want to teach other people as well I mean, you have all of these really strong habits, right? And it kind of like I watched you kind of grow up and like you kind of use yourself as a guinea pig, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate like the lifestyle choices you've made, right? In terms of like, I mean, you're even a more extreme version of me. I mean, we're obviously different people, but I've learned from you, right? And I appreciate your dedication to your craft. And even though technically you're not a professional chef, you are a professional food maker, right?
Yeah.
And the way that you think about, you know, sourcing and seasonality and your relationship with farmers and all that stuff is in keeping with, you know, my current philosophy. So I think we're going to be able to collab really well together. I love the idea of just using like a few really choice ingredients that are in season and local and just allowing those to like really sing and stand out.
Yeah, absolutely.
The pizza that I've been making recently using this Hayden Mills flour. What I like about it also is that I've tried a bunch of flours, and this is actually a pretty neutral one.
Yeah.
And I've noticed before that sometimes when you use a less neutral flour, it's a distraction almost. It could be too nutty or too bitter or too something, right? And people eat it and they're like, what's that flavor? When people start doing this, you're like, all right, back to the drawing board, right?
Yeah.
But so I think it'll be fun to experiment with tapioca flour, aka cassava flour, aka all the other things that we call it, and come up with some fun vegetarian possibilities. What about cheese? Last thing, is there any particular cheese that you like to use, or are there any dairy products that you like to use, or even non-dairy products?
Yeah, I mean, I really like, obviously, trying to, I grew up being mostly vegan, and then I was vegan for a number of years, like most of my 20s. And then I went to Italy, and I kind of had this experience where I started to recognize, like, oh, if my option is like having local dairy versus some like imported soy or some other alternative product, like what is really the better option there? So I mean, being in LA, like we're lucky to have really nice options for local grass-fed cheeses, some of which are available at the farmers market. So I'm always interested in kind of trying different cheeses. I also recently have started experimenting making some very like simple cheeses.
Which ones?
So I recently did a oh my gosh, what did
Cheddar, mozzarella,
no, I've
farmer's cheese.
been doing mostly like softer cheeses,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
because that's like an easier point to start with, before I get into kind of something that's more aged or harder.
Yeah.
And then I also enjoy doing like plant-based stuff, although I haven't. I feel like I need more experimentation kind of on pizza, because I tend to not like the way that they cook at higher temps.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, like, if you have any, if you've had
No. I mean, so I have the same issues that you have. Like, I don't like the way a lot of these alternative cheeses cook as well, and so I tend to add them after the bake, or I go through a process where I get the pizza 90, 95, even 100% baked, and then slide the item back into the oven real quick just to give it a little something. But I also think that it's also maybe necessary to re-educate people about what to expect from pizza. And so as a caterer, right, and as a pizza consultant, it's a big part of what I do, because even just the idea, let's say, of putting arugula on a pizza, right, 15, 20 years ago was like a big ask for Americans, right? The idea of putting burrata, right, or buffalo mozzarella was a big ask. I'm working with a lot of alternative cheeses now, and so the texture issue is a little challenging, right? But so that's like, for me, that's all kind of the final frontier, because I'm good with I'm good with most toppings, and I'm good with like putting stuff on after the bake, right? Pickled vegetables, different kinds of like yogurts and kefirs, and there's all kinds of beautiful stuff. There's all kinds of spreads and pestos. Personally, I like a hot pizza, and then I like toppings that also are either room temperature or cold on top. I love that, but not everybody does.
Yeah.
So the trick is going to be to convert some of the people who are like, that's not pizza, into like, wow, this is good.
So where do you draw the line, Noel, of like what is pizza, and what makes pizza to you?
Well, let's see here. So I think that the shape of it is really important. I mean, it sounds silly.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Although, but you already have like rectangular shapes and round shapes.
Yeah.
So it's like octagonal. Is that like?
No. So like making it something that's recognizably pizza shaped is is a hurdle that is sometimes, if you can jump that hurdle, then you can get people to at least look at something like pizza. Like, for instance, again, going back to the beginner class. So I was looking at all the different like permutations that the Italians, the French, the Argentinians use this flour for. And to me, none of it was pizza as an American, right? As a middle-class kid that grew up in the suburbs, just not pizza. So the first thing I did was try to make it in. I made it in one of these pans, so it's a round pan. That's the shape of pizza. And then I made it in a rectangular pan, also a shape of pizza. And that forced me to change everything about what I was doing. You couldn't use a wood-fired oven, right? You couldn't use a frying pan.
Yeah.
And so, but the good news was that I came up with a recipe that was very pizza-like. And then the trick is, how do you incorporate the toppings so that it eats like pizza? Easier said than done. But so the quick answer to your question is use a traditional shape. That seems to help, and use also a traditional, like a traditional oven, right? So like, for instance, in Nice, where I've been lucky enough to travel to, they make something called soca, and they do it in a pan, right? And then they slide that pan into an oven, a wood-fired oven. But the way it comes out and the way it's served, it's not really very pizza-like. They don't cut it into triangles. They do cut it into squares and rectangles, which is like a party cut in Chicago, tavern-style pizza.
Yeah.
So I guess the slice of it too is important, right? How how is it served? Is it a triangle?
Right.
Is it a square or a rectangle, or is it some weird amorphous shape?
Sure.
Organic, right? So I mean, it's one of those things where I think, like, I'm not going to say I'm ahead of the curve, because I'm certainly not, but in a lot of the pizza community, it's very traditional. Trying to innovate something sometimes meets a lot of resistance, and I think that's when you know that you're onto something.
Yeah.
When you meet a lot of resistance. So I look forward to this journey with you.
Likewise. Thank you, Noel.
And it'll be interesting to see if we can get Justin to enjoy cassava flour. Say it, Justin. Can you say it?
I love the little Brazilian bites.
Oh, they're good.
Those
They're
little,
good. We'll definitely make some
cassava flour. Oh yeah.
Let's put Chipa on our list for
chewy, cheesy
for the kids.
That's my stuff.
It's good.
I was thinking about what you guys are saying. I'm really excited, Phil, that you're going to come in and be working with us on these recipes. But Noel, you said that, what does Noel look for? And he said shape. So I was thinking about the shape of pizzas to come. Am I right? Or the shape of tomorrow's pizzas today, Noel, as we're trying to think of our healthy pizza initiative. So kind of fun. So
good. All right, so Philip, we have two things on our to-do list. We got to meet it. I have to meet you at the market at what time? 6:30 or 7? What time do you leave?
I'm usually gone by 8.
All right, so maybe I'll try to meet you at 7 or 7:15, or maybe I'll meet you at 6:30 and shadow you and see what you do, and then we can just chat in between. I'll do that.
Sounds good.
And then the other thing we need to do is we need to get a class on the calendar. So I'll hit you up this week.
Awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Or maybe more than one.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can come up with.
That's right. Yes.
All right, good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate the live brainstorming session, and also thanks for the memories. It's been a long time since we've known each other, so I'm happy to work with you again.
Awesome.
Likewise. Thanks, Noel. Always fun.
All right, Phil.
Fun.
Okay.
Nice to see you, bud. Yep.
Thank you.
Later. Noel, we have got some stuff on the docket.
Yeah, we do.
It seems like there's a lot going on here, my man. My goodness.
There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of people that I've been meeting with that are going to be coming to some of these, or not. People are busy.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to give up their weekends. It's a tough sell.
You'll have another one next week. And I hear a lot of people are thinking about the 4-day work week. So a lot of corporatos.
It is true. It is true.
Who knows? Well, dude, I'm really excited. I'm excited. Did you glean any new stuff today? What are some of your takeaways that you want us to focus on moving forward here, brother?
Well, I mean, really, I feel like there's like my desk is like covered with notes, with recipes, with to-do lists, with all kinds of stuff that I'm like are in little bits and pieces. So I'm trying to I really appreciated Nancee and her take, right? Very, I hate to use the term maternal.
Hey, whoa.
I don't like to use the term maternal, but I think that she brings like a very understanding kind of elegance to what we're trying to do. But I also feel like her evidence-based approach is super important.
Right.
I really appreciate this whole idea of regenerative agriculture, right? And it's not just me and my bubble shopping in the farmer's market. I'm trying to like reach out and get other people to, join the journey,
Yeah.
right?
I think
Wherever
it's
you are.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is going to be just, once again, it comes back to the awareness. I mean, everything kind of, I see it all, kind of working together. And it's not unlike when we were taking just the different pieces of, making, when we were making dough initially. I mean, the the passion and the insight of the nutrition and the way you think about that with the farming that you then that filters down to like agriculture and how we're actually getting more things from the food that we're actually ingesting, so it's not just empty and wasteful, using, with Cam and Jimmy, using the data, the backed up data to do our research that then supports all that stuff. And then we got Philip that we can take the stuff that is using those type of things already and reinfuse and reinforce the foods and think outside the proverbial pizza box, which is a square. And like you were saying, what is the shape? What is the shape of pizza to come next? So I really like how everything kind of weave together, and it brings us back to you and I. These are all variables in the next phase of our pizza equation.
Absolutely. I think the funny thing, like this idea of shape, like you have this little algorithm running in your head about like the square, the triangle,
Right.
the circle, right? And it's
Right. What was the thing? It's a round pie that you cut into triangles, and it comes in a square box.
makes no sense.
But it does. I mean,
Well,
but that's
I
what's
know,
great about it.
but
That's what it comes back. It's like it means so many different things to so many different people.
there
So
you go.
why try to put it into a box, really?
Good question. We'll have to
Huh?
come back to that.
So,
Hold on, you cut me off because I
yeah,
wanted to
sorry.
kind of continue, and then we'll wrap it up. I know it's been long. So I also think that so King Arthur, I think that their idea of going, 100%
By 2030.
regenerative, regen ag. Say it with me.
Regen ag. Okay,
You
I'm
can say
gonna,
that, right?
I'm gonna regen ag.
Going
Regen ag.
100% by 2030, I think, is a
Re,
great goal.
and that's regenerate. I'm putting an
Let's
extra
say.
syllable in it. Agriculture. Regen ag.
Yeah. I really, really appreciated James and Camron coming on as well. Those guys are they're incredible to me. Like to be able to distill so many important ideas and kind of break them down, like with their flow charts and all their.
Yeah,
It's so cool.
I mean, I feel like I see those on Reddit about like how you like the Venn diagram of your life. Did you do this? Yes. Do you believe in that? Yes. Then you go here, so it's good to have some scientists that can break it down and make things accessible for, the common folk like you and I.
I mean,
Dare I say, the fools and idiots of the
yeah.
of the pizza
I mean,
game.
what one of the really difficult things for me also is like people want what they want and they want to do it in a way that makes sense to them, right? And so how do you make it make sense to them? Everybody has a different way of learning, right? Like I have probably 3 dozen books on my bookshelf that have to do with like healthy eating. Some of them are cookbooks, some of them are science based. There's a huge range, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I read about, right? But not everybody likes to read, right? So like one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm working with trainers, fitness people. I've got a couple of farmers that I'm talking to, and we're gonna do for people who can't go to Valle de Guadalupe or Valle de Guadalupe and go to a regeneratively farmed wine tasting. We're gonna bring the farm to them.
Great.
So yeah, lots of good collabs coming up. So I'm excited about those. Let's see. Philip was great. James and Cameron, Katie, everybody was great today. So
Yeah.
we went a little long, but
Yeah, it is what it is.
got to do what you got to do.
And Nance was there. Well, awesome, dude. Which you had asked me a few questions. I wanted to show you. I'm going to adjust my background here so
Here we go.
you can see. So I think that this was. I don't know. Can you see? I think that this was the top that I did. 3,900 grams.
Oh, good. So almost 4 kilos. That's
Almost
great.
4 kilos. And I was wrong. I was incorrect about that. It's not an 8-quart. I think I bought that one, but I had to return it. But it's the 7-quart. So I got an extra half, and I put that into the old Amazon list I'm sorry, the chat here. So I do have one other photo if we're gonna, it's so funny that we've been doing this. I think that you'll really get a kick out of this
Is
one.
this another bar mitzvah picture, Justin?
No, but it is.
You're blocking it. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Hold on.
Look at you. Yeah. Look at look at you then. Look at you now. That's what 50 pounds looks like. Yeah, look at it.
It's the same. It's the exact same.
Look
That's
at
me.
you. Yeah, look at you. Back in the day. So that was 2002, 5/28, 2020.
That is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what's funny about that? I feel like we need to find more of those shots.
Yeah.
Because that needs to be my background, not your background.
Yeah. I'll send it over to you. You can just put it right there, and you could you put up the green screen and then drop it.
That's really good. Yeah. There's this guy that Nancee introduced me to, not literally, but digitally.
Mm-hmm.
And he's big on TikTok and Instagram, named Dr. Ids.
Okay.
And he's a doctor and a scientist, I believe, and he debunks all these influencer health and nutrition myths. And what he always does is he always puts himself in front of somebody's video on green screen and kind of interrupts what they're saying and then says, all right, time for school. And he goes to the source of what they're talking about and says, actually, this is the paper that they're referencing, but it doesn't say what it says they say. It actually says this. And so actually that's kind of was one of the sources of me wanting to have Camron and James on, because I love how he does that, but I can't do that.
Right. I think it's important to not overcomplicate it and make it accessible to people.
Yeah.
And not, there's a lot of dis and misinformation on a lot of things about nutrition. I mean, shoot, when we were growing up, don't eat eggs. Butter is bad. Eat this margarine.
Right. Of course.
Right? I mean, that was a big thing in our household. We had country crock because butter was bad.
Yeah.
Coconut oil was bad, like they were talking about. Now it's good. Coffee will stunt your growth. I heard something, if you drink less than 3 cups of coffee a day, it's actually better for your better for diabetes and circulatory. Now, maybe you don't put a bunch of sugar and pink stuff or whatever they put at the big coffee chains, but it just goes to show that there's a lot we don't know moving forward.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to go on this journey. The shape of pizzas to come on this healthy pizza initiative with you, brother. So you want to say bye to these fine people? Susan is out there.
Susan, thank you for sticking with us. She's the last woman standing.
Yes, the last person standing.
I mean, it's 12:52. That's a long one. It's supposed to be 2 hours, but I kind of figured it would go over because there was a lot of people that I wanted to talk to, and it's sometimes you gotta go over 5 minutes. So
true.
5 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
It all adds up.
All good.
So,
all right, so we're gonna try to get this on the big U in the sky.
I'm going to try to turn it around by Monday, Tuesday, hopefully by Monday. And then you're just going to be putting a bunch of blasts out on Instagram, letting people know about the upcoming classes. Yeah. And also about the rebates that they'll get if they get their flowers from Hayden and King Arthur. So everybody can get those in time for the classes coming up. And what are those dates again, Noel? Can you just go over them with me?
So the beginner class is going to be Saturday, October 5th.
Okay.
And then the intermediate class, and this is going to be beginner and intermediate level 3, is going to be 2 weeks later. So that's Saturday, October 19.
Uh-huh.
And these are all 10 a.m. Pacific. And then November 2nd will be the advanced level 3.
Okay, great. Good,
and
good,
these will be pretty long deep dive classes, I assume. I don't know, because it's the first. Each one is the first of many. We're not just going to do one of each. I'm going to invite other people back to do beginner classes, some people back to do intermediate classes, and different collabs for the advanced as well. So
great.
Just like when we started level 1 and level 2, we don't know what the response is going to be. We don't know how long they'll last. You know, when we started level 1, we were just going to do it for a week and see how it went, right?
Beginner classes, we got a bunch of them. That's where that shot was from. So
Justin, can I get you to find a few more of those? We need to, I think no, for this week. Can I give you some homework even before you start on this? Get some fat Noel beginner class shots, and we'll do before and afters.
Yeah, those will be fun.
Oh yeah, they'll be fun. All right.
There we go. There we go. Hold on, let me put it back here. All right, say goodbye to these people.
Bye, people.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you know the deal. Gentlemen and ladies, cats and dogs, children of all ages. You know the deal, people. This is really exciting. This is the next phase. We're going to do this together for the people, for the planet. You know, here at Slow Rise, we do not get into the politics of pepperoni and pineapple unless it's an election season. Oh, no, my friends, we say pizza always and always pizza. Pieces and slices, everybody, with love. Yeah.